Everybody on? Kevin, are you on?
I'm still launching here.
3, 2, 1.
I just have to mute when we get on there and then we'll be ready to go.
Okay, it looks like you're live now, Betsy. I'm gonna add to the one
And they're the only ones.
so far.
Huh, okay. All right. There's an echo.
That's me.
We're good? Okay. We were still waiting for a few people. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing that we love to have every year on the budget to get some comments and feedback from people. We're going to go ahead and open, although there are some people missing that did want to participate. So we may pause and let some new people in if they show up. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started in case those of you, Glenn Morrison and Sue, you're the only two on, had something to say, or you may be just signing on for the meeting. You can just let us know, either one. But normally we would welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to the public hearing. And if you have any comments on the budget, we'd love to hear them. Normally, if we had new people on, we would introduce them to the town board, but I don't think that's necessary tonight. Remember that the goal of a public hearing is to listen to thoughts that you have. We're going to take them down, and anything that anybody says we'll take down and we'll note it. Oh, and I forgot, Alfreda's here in person. Sorry, I apologize, in case you have something to say too. The general rules of procedure, everybody that wants to speak who's on the town clerk's list will speak. We typically give people 3 minutes. We have a very small group here tonight. No filibustering, Glenn, but you may be able to get a little more than 3, depending on what direction you take it in. I'm just kidding you, but we try to keep things moving along because the town board actually has a long meeting tonight because we have to go through the budget. So we are going to streamline our normal meeting. And based on that, the normal rules apply. No speaker can cede their time to another speaker. You typically get a 20-second warning for a wrap up. I don't think that's necessary tonight. We appreciate you guys coming and anything that you have to say. When everybody has spoken and we deem that the public hearing is over, I will close the meeting. I'm supposed to use a gavel to do that. I'll go find my gavel and then we will begin and open our regular agenda meeting. All right, so thank you very much for coming. Let me get the gavel. There we go. And I would say, Clerk Casey, would you tell us who was first name on the list? I don't think I have that. You want to tell us?
We had Michelle, but she's not present. So Karina was the next one down, who's also not present, and then Glenn and Sue.
Okay, Mr. Morrison.
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. And I apologize in advance. My connectivity is not very stable, so hopefully I don't drop out on you. I've got, for the budget goes, I've just got one question and maybe a suggestion.
Or comment.
You mentioned at a past meeting at the end of last year, our town had roughly $2.6 million, and I think you call it a cash balance, or I'll call it excess money. And it looks like this year that's projected to be about $3 million by the end of the year. So my question, whether that's answered now or later, is what's the town going to do with $3 million? It's a lot of money. I think it's good to have money for a rainy day, but it is a lot of money. So that's my number one. Do I understand it right? And number two, I'd be interested in knowing either now or later what the town plans to do with that money.
Okay.
If you're looking for suggestions, I also noticed the health insurance costs went up again quite a bit, 28%. Last year was 20-some%. And you look like you're froze, but I guess not. Okay. If I made a suggestion last year to kind of take a look at that, the response I got is there's bad laws in New York State that prevent us from controlling that. If you're looking for ways to spend that money, maybe it's time to go find an expert, call that person a consultant, if you will, to take a look at that and come up with a prioritized list of how we might try to control that. And I'm not necessarily saying that needs to be controlled by increased contributions of employees. I've seen it done different ways.
Okay, thank you. Do you want, I mean, I can start with the insurance question. There's a couple of questions on the table that the board will be discussing tonight when we get there. But we are limited in the state of New York. You know, it's a tough state for insurance carriers. It's a community issue state. So the rates aren't really that different from company to company. Our commercial, I mean, our health insurance rates for the product that we use, and we assess them all annually. The product itself, sorry, went up 6.25%. The reason that our rates look much higher this year is we have additional people that are coming onto the plan. And so the rates go up as a result of new people coming on. And full-time, and we did make an adjustment that full-time employees were the ones that have access to the plan. And because we had have some full-time employees that chose, for whatever reason, you know, to get on the plan, it's their right to get on the plan, and that drives our rates typically year over year. And then sometimes we have, like this year, we had somebody go off earlier, went off last year, we saved a lot of money. And then they came back on this year because of a spousal change, not a spousal change, but a change in the spouse's situation. So most of the time our increases, once we do the analysis and see what the products are out there, that they're very similar. They all trade in a tight band. They're quite competitive with one another. They seem to know what each other's, you know, charging, and they're all pretty similar based on their experiences. But when new employees come on, it drives the cost higher. So, but I can get back to your fund balance question. And so basically we, two years ago, or I'm in my third, we worked really hard to change some of the departments, the way some of them operated, so that they would not be running at a loss. We're not trying to be big profit centers here. We want to be run flat, or in some areas, make some revenue to bring back to keep taxes down. In the area of recreation, that's the best probably example of that. And so the purpose was to manage the businesses maybe a little bit, the areas a little bit more like a business, whereas we didn't constantly throw money at things that were losing money. The employees did a fantastic job, and the town board rewarded them with their good work 2 years ago and last year. And because we're all of our departments are now, I think they're running flat, or they're running at a profit, except in this COVID year when we didn't have any revenue. So to get to your answer, we had a big jump in fund balance as a result of turning some departments around. We also watch our expenses. And one of the things, you know, we had a very long list of infrastructure projects that in a given year, when you have your normal amounts of revenue coming in, that you can, you know, spend $125,000 on that cement bridge in the park, and then we have Furnace Pond Dam coming up, which could be. We really started saving for that when we all agreed to become responsible dam owners, and, you know, go through the process, get a new engineering company. It could be $1 million just for Furnace Pond Dam. Now we're lucky interest rates are really low right now, but we had an infrastructure list that had $1.3 million of a price tag on it for various things that they hadn't been voted on. They were just on the list, and the board was kind of reviewing everything. And then you add what could be $1 million for the dam, and we may not decide to go that route, but these are things that we've been saving for because we don't want to go into debt, number one. And number two, you never know when a year like this one's going to come along, and we're going to run in the red probably by the end of the year. We're not going to have enough between tax revenue, and because we didn't, we bring in so much in taxes every year, but we double that amount to live off of. We actually get almost double that in revenue. So that's how the town survives. And when you have a tough year like a COVID year, when we get zero in revenue, you need it's called fund balance. You need your fund balance to help you not be in a bad position, so that the first quarter of next year, for example, we have enough money to pay the bills before the tax revenue comes in. So we're in a good spot because of that belt tightening, and the board's persevering on watching these expenses regularly, and the employees doing an absolute phenomenal job. So I think we're in a really good spot. We will go in the red, but we're not sweating it because we know that money is there. We're not making big capital project allocations or bets right now would be my guess. In my opinion, I think we're all on the same page. We're waiting for this engineering analysis to come back soon to tell us what Furnace Pond Dam is going to cost us and the various choices we have given whatever they find out. So that's what the analysis is for. Once we get that big elephant in the room taken care of and we know what our plan is, then our fund balance becomes something that enables us to have a rainy day fund or a COVID season fund, if you want to call it that, and something to fall back on, and then to start allocating towards a prioritization of projects that, that collectively people think are important. So our fund balance is keeping all of us, letting us sleep at night right now, and it's a good thing to have. But you know, we'll revisit it after the dam analysis comes back. Okay. The insurance, I think we're in really good shape on health insurance because we look around at what other people have, and you know, new employees come in and then people come off, and that does drive our costs. But as far as a cost for the product itself, it's up 6.25%. I don't think we can complain about that. So I hope I answered your question. It's typically a hearing where we're supposed to listen, but I didn't want to leave that one outstanding, Glenn. Now maybe Sue Kilcrease, would you like to say something? Hang on, are you unmuted? Okay.
I'm unmuted. Hi, thank you for having this. So my questions, of course, all surround the library, and part of it is there are some questions, and I just don't want to make assumptions reading the budget, and you will probably maybe clarify some of this later, if not now. So I noticed there's a line item for $25,000 for library contracts. I'm assuming that's to pay for the Canopy and Baker and Taylor contracts. That most of
it's not for contracts, it's for library services, any services that that we have to replace, that the libraries have put us on restriction from.
Okay, and so for right now, that's the Canopy and the Baker and Taylor.
Well, those aren't the products, those are the companies.
The companies.
The products are, and maybe you can help us with one thing, Sue, since there's so few of you, I'm responding, and I know I'm supposed to
I appreciate it.
listen, but since there's so few. So there was a resident that came in and said that they went to one of the libraries and they were told that they couldn't order a book and have it brought in from another library. And that is absolutely not appropriate, because part of what our state taxes go to fund the Mid-Hudson Library System, their $3.5 million budget or $3.4 million budget, it permits that ability for books to be transferred from library to library around the system. And what our residents are on restriction from are books that are less than 12 months old. So we're focusing with Baker and Taylor with providing our residents with anything that's less than 12 months old, and maybe we focus on the New York Times bestseller list so people can request that. But if somebody goes into LaGrange or any other Beekman and says, I need a book, of Robert Frost poems, it is not a book that library has. They most definitely should be transferring that around and giving it to them. What we are on restriction from, as you know, are the video streaming, the ebooks, the audio books, all the newer items that are, that they deem that local taxpayers pay for. Periodicals probably, although we're providing periodicals. So yeah, all of that new stuff that people pretty much want. And so that's what we're spending that money on, and that's what we will be replacing. And the rest of the services should be offered to our residents because our state taxes help pay for them.
Okay, and thank you. I don't see a budget item for paying I don't know what you call Kathy, the library coordinator, resource person.
Well, Kathy Wellman, or whoever, was in that role is actually the town clerk, the deputy town clerk. And since this is operating kind of like the recycling center passes, when people come to the window or they call in and say, we need a recycling center pass. In this case, all they need is their library access number, or whatever we're calling it, the library services access number or something. Then they can go in and get it from online or send Kathy a request online. But she is the deputy town clerk, so she's paid that way. And if there's any overage, it would come out of the same library services budget.
All right, so that's kind of being absorbed in that. The only, So, I mean, just
Oh,
getting
the
back
tax
to what
collector, sorry.
services were, we will be restricted from. It's not as big of an issue right now because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So most of the libraries aren't doing programs. People wouldn't choose to go to many of them if they were. But eventually, hopefully, we're going to get past this. So is there any plan to put money in for replacing those kind of services or moving forward? Because I know you've talked about a new library, but I don't see any other money targeted for a library other than that $25,000, which I
Well-
assume most of it will be taken up.
Well, yeah. So there's a couple ways of looking at that. One, we assessed what we needed, and those were numbers we were given, and so we want to provide those services to our residents. We want to make sure they're not put on restriction. We did not want to not have a contract, as you know, and I don't want to relitigate the whole thing.
No, I wasn't asking you to do that. What I'm asking
Yeah.
is if that's,
Well,
you're now putting a budget together. So
Right.
$25,000 will pay for those services, but
yeah.
there's nothing I see for planning ahead, moving ahead. Where are we going from here after this? Or are we just, this is it? This is what we'll always have, and then rely on the libraries for the other. I guess that's just my question. And since there's no money in there, I don't want to make an assumption that's not true.
Yeah.
I just want, if that's what it is, that's what it is. I don't want to, there will be another time to get into that, but just in this budget currently, that's the money I'm seeing
So,
for 2021. So that
Right.
brings us a whole year.
so we have two ways of looking at that. One, those were the numbers that those services would cost our town. And it's not the 70, it's not, or whatever, the 79,000 and all that the four libraries wanted. The actual services based on the numbers, those were what those services literally cost. So, it's another underscore of the point that we certainly know with the libraries that we're paying them a lot more, and they're getting a lot more from us than absolutely is, needed. However, this year is so complicated because of a lack of revenue. And because I do estimate that we will be in the red. And when I say in the red, what I mean is what we actually brought in this year to utilize, we're going to use a little bit more than that. And we've never done that before. So that, nobody likes to be in that position. And
Right.
again, it's back to Glenn's question about the fund balance. So anything beyond what we're going to need in 2021 is going to be an allocation of fund balance by vote by the town board. So if, for example, we decide after we've had these several budget discussions, we're going to need to put more money into the Highway Capital Reserve Fund, which is not in the budget this year, and we want it to be, but it's not because we couldn't afford it. It will be an allocation, it will be a vote of the town board to allocate our unallocated fund balance, which means it's not dedicated towards anything except use. That is what we estimated the cost of the library services that need to be replaced to be. And so that's what we're using. If something came up and we needed more, it's not that we don't have it. That also being said, that we have those gentlemen that are working very hard to get their structure in place. And I have to tell you, in talking to them, they are very motivated and very excited. And what they'd like to come back to the board and talk to and share with the town is just a wonderful plan that might make a terrific community center for the town, and give us something proud to have. So I wouldn't poo-poo that either. The quicker they get going and the quicker they get some money in, the better. But it wouldn't it be nice if all this happened at the same time? We wish them the best of luck, and we're waiting to hear more from them. But I know their plans are phenomenal. So, there's more to come about the library, Sue, but right now we can afford to replace what you're missing. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay. All right. We'll talk again. Who's next? Oh, Mrs. Tillman would like to speak. Hold on one second.
Page 21 of the budget, A1170, it's 3 blocks down, and it says franchises. Can I assume that's Cablevision money coming in? Page 20, if I can see this, 23. Fines and forfeitures. Does this mean we get money from the court?
Yeah,
That's nice.
we don't get as, as much as we should, but we,
Well, it's been quiet. Okay, and lastly, page 31, the tax collector is an elected official, and her salary is not listed. Is that because she's only here part of the time?
no, her salary, hang on, I think what page are you on? Because she's on her own page now.
Page 31, it says the schedule.
She's on 4.
Okay, well, I just assumed this was your summary.
Oh, that's a list of salaries. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Her numbers don't correspond with the numbers we have in front of us, the page numbers. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, she's got the other version and you've got it. I don't know. It probably renumbered automatically, Steve. I wonder.
Yeah,
She's on page 27 looking at the schedule.
page 27. All right. And someplace in here, you mentioned, I don't remember.
Oh, I see what you mean. I'm sorry. I just got it. Gotcha.
Remember, I got this kind of early. Things may have changed a bit.
No, that one, no, I'll fix that. Thank you. That's a good point. Because before it was the first year I remember typing that she was part of the town clerk's office. And then we moved it back to, yeah.
Don't pick on my girl. Her bill was laying out on the lawn. Rental property, that amount of, wherever the heck it is in here, that's for the smaller of the 2 houses on the ground.
Yes,
And no rental property has accrued from the big building yet.
not yet.
And somewhere tonight, will there be a report on the school? I would really like to know how that's going.
No, because they're renting property from us, but sorry, Mrs. Tillman is asking about the soccer school.
No, that's another school. I mean, the school where our kids are able to go here during the day.
Oh, she's talking about TGTT. Thank goodness there's time more. Yes, we do have a report about that.
Okay, good.
Okay,
I'm just a nosy body.
no, that's all right. Okay. She was asking about
Thank
a
you.
report that we're going to have in the regular meeting, in case she couldn't hear. Anything else? Is that it?
Oh, there's more.
Okay. Is there anybody else on the list? That was it? Okay, and they're not joining us. Okay. So given that all the speakers have spoken and there's no one else on our list with the town clerk, I, at this point, would make a final call. Are there any other residents on that would like to speak or ask a question? No. There's nobody else on. Okay. All right. Well, since that was the final call and there isn't anybody else that would like to speak at this point, I would like to just close this hearing. Thank you very much for being here. We'll start our new meeting in just a moment. Thank you. Meeting is closed, or the public hearing is now officially closed. That's what they tell you to do in the book. Okay. So I'm going to say, just give us, does anybody need to take a break or anything?
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody has a speaker turned on.
Yeah, I think I might have.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. And then we will start actually, we'll probably take a 3-minute break. And as soon as everybody comes back, we will start the meeting up again. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. It is now time to start our regularly scheduled town board agenda meeting. And at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, our first order of business is to approve the minutes from August 20th and September 17th. I know they've all been distributed. Has everybody had a chance to read them? And can I have a motion that we approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion to approve both those minutes.
Okay. I'll second it. All in favor of approving both months' minutes, August 17th and, August 20th, excuse me, and September 17th, say aye.
Aye.
All right, aye, all in favor unanimously, those passed. Now the town supervisors report. I've prepared a report. I'm going to go ahead and read it to make it go a little quicker. The revenue for September was, this is my financial start, and then we've got a few other announcements. The revenue for September was $34,539 less than September of last year, which is down about 45%. Our expenses were also down from last year by $12,197. So, if you look at the cash flow report that's been distributed, we're down about $107,000 for the month. Unemployment claims with our required payout has now reached $18,715. I think the last time I reported on it, we were in the 16,000s. There are still 6 to 7 applications waiting on a determination from the Department of Labor. But we'll be, maxed out, I would guess, at less than 20,000, but that is an unexpected expense this year. The year-end results will probably be negative with some expected bills still looming. For example, our engineering analysis on Furnace Pond Dam that I keep talking about was a $45,000 budget item this year, and they've only billed us for a portion of it. And I know that big report is coming soon, which we're all waiting for. So we'll owe that. So there are some still pretty big bills that are expected. And as a result, we'll be using the unallocated fund balance to close out the year, just as I've already mentioned. So I don't need to repeat that. Tonight, we will be reviewing the tentative budget, and also we'll be talking about it again on October 29th. Issues that we bring up tonight that we make note of with regard to capital projects, revenue generation, cost saving measures, or anything else, or idea exchange that we might have as a board tonight, we can contemplate and discuss again on the 29th, because we've got 3 meetings scheduled this month as a result of trying to cover all this. Before, at the end of the month of October, we vote on the tentative budget becoming, with any tweaking we do, the preliminary budget for the month of November. Our commercial insurance application is back to the carrier for 2021. I just want to say that is an unbelievable ordeal, just because it's so detailed. And this year, I was just I want to show the board members, we have a vehicle list, which we've really studied, and then we've added one in a very small font on Excel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 pages of items that we haven't before covered or included. And they are covered under our insurance policy, but it's better if you have a list of them, because then you can claim if, let's say, a building burned, they will give you a lot more in return if they have a record of all these things. So we're being very meticulous and trying to chase things down. We still have work to do on pricing, but it's a work in progress. But all of that was an entire day yesterday, but finishing up that, but that is all in. And we will get to, I've got $65,000 in the budget for the commercial insurance. I'm hoping it'll be lower than that. They think they're going to be able to give us some credit for getting 0 revenue. In other words, we had 0 events, so we had very little liability this year. So I think we might get a credit back for that.
Oh,
So they're working on it. They're going to let me know next week, and I'll pass that on right away to the board. Let's see, the annual landfill report is being completed now. Excuse me, our engineer went out and inspected the landfill prior to the solar development construction taking place, so that we have a good record of condition. And I think that's important for us, because the DEC looks to the town to be responsible for the site. with or without a contract with a solar developer. Ultimately, it's the town's responsibility. So our engineer went and checked everything out for us and has a good record, which is terrific. And they're working on our annual report, and that will be submitted as soon as they complete it. I have received a written request from the planning board to, one, review and discuss dominant applications, which probably was the result of the conversation we've been having about building permits. And two, to review the town code with regard to solar developments. As a result, I asked the town planner to review the solar portion of our town code and to let us know where the holes are. We received that response from Jennifer O'Donnell today, and it has been given in the mailboxes of each one of the town board members as a discussion that we will have in the future. It's being passed on to the planning board, the land use attorney, and the zoning board, so they can begin taking a look at it to see if there are some recommendations they want to make to us, up to and including a moratorium or using moratoria, if you will. And if the town board thinks that some of their recommendations would require changes in the town code, then we would move in that direction, I'm sure, if we all agreed to that. But anyway, it's a wonder. I think that she did a very thorough job, and we've got a lot of studying to do, and we'll wait to hear back from the planning board and zoning board. One thing to note, though, that dormant applications, unlike the building permits, are something, actually, Councilman Durland and I started this when I got there. We set up a whole policy and procedures area for planning and zoning. And these changes in dormant applications and the expiration dates on it, they can handle that in that policies and procedures. It's not in the code, so that's not an expense we'll be incurring and or have to get involved with, really. The solar development is getting ready to break ground. They have chosen a company called Common Energy to be the subscriber aggregator for the project. Their website is www.commonenergy.us. You can go ahead and take a look at that website if you'd like. They're going to be getting in touch with Unionville residents from those that indicated interest when we sent that Unionville mail out months ago. But at least they're ready to go, and they will be reaching out to people, but you can go look at them in advance if you'd like. I think their building permit is being issued as soon as they come back to us. I think tomorrow they're probably going to tell George what the plants are going to be. Councilman Welsh, you didn't see, but I think it's called 12.5 gauge, that wire back there. I guess the black is the same as the silver, but we're going with the
Yeah.
black. They brought it in and said they were going to match our interest in having the
Good.
poles
Oh, that's
painted.
good, yeah. That
So
is
they
gonna be
offered
nice.
that, which is great,
Nice, yeah.
assuming it passes muster. You like the black? Looks good, okay.
It'll
I
go
thought it
good-
was,
It'll go good with the solar panels, too.
yeah, well, yeah, it's right. It'll probably disappear more, yeah. So that's imminent. They've already started putting some things on the property over there, so that project is getting underway. And finally, I would like to thank the Dutchess County Chamber of Commerce for the extremely well-run balloon festival that they had here at Timor Park at the end of September. When the weather finally cooperated, the balloons took off in flight and ultimately landed, which I thought was fabulous, all across, in backyards and across the street in fields from all Unionville houses. They didn't even land their balloons outside of Unionville, which was a wonderful touch. And I have to say, it was unclear who had more fun, the riders in the balloons or the children who watched them land in their neighborhoods and were scrambling to go in a group from one to the other. It was just a really nice event, and they ran it very well. They left the parks spectacularly clean.
They did, yeah. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I think the park, our park manager, Jake Gosnell, and his team were extremely pleased. So just, I'd say A+ all the way around. And we didn't really cover that before, so I wanted to thank them. And that would be my report. The only thing I forgot to read to you was an email from Pat Cardellemi, the chairs, that I would like to discuss the town's solar code. I think there needs to be some updates made to the code, and I think while the town board should consider a moratorium on solar development, there has been a lot of changes to solar and the battery storage. I think we need to update the code with the evolving nature of the technology. So that and the second one, which I don't need to read out loud, but anyway, you have the response from our planners, something for us to all digest. And that will be that for the town supervisor's report. At this point, I would like to call on council members. Councilman Welsh, anything you'd like to offer?
Well,
Report on?
thanks for putting all this budget information out. I've been reviewing the budget numbers and trying to get familiar with them. Hang on, let me unmute. Thanks for putting all this budget info online on our computers and now the printed copy. But it's very challenging this year with the financial situation we're facing and the uncertainty. But So I've been trying to get as involved as possible. Also, I've been going more often to the recycling center. And I just want to remind residents, if money's getting tight, a good way to save money is to use the recycling center rather than have pickup at your house. It's considerably less expensive. If you want to look at the numbers, it's a very good value, and our town clerk will soon have new memberships for 2021. So I would encourage anybody who's not a member to join and make good use of that recycling center. You'll save a notable amount of money.
That's great. Yeah. And it's a good place. People like going there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councilman Welsh. Councilman Durland?
Sure, I just want to touch on one thing that
Sorry. Yeah, I just want to touch on the TT that Alfredo brought up before. And I'm one of the few parents that are in that program. And if anybody listening is interested in that, it's really worked out well for our family, and the hours are amazing. They have the whole day. I think it's from 8 o'clock to 6. I think it's in Steve's report when he gives it. But I just want to say thank you to Allison, who's running the program. And just reiterate that it's really a well-run program. My son loves it. So
That's great.
if you're interested, check it out.
That's great. Thank you very much. Councilman McGivney? Wait a minute, Councilman McGivney, sorry.
Well, like Councilman Welsh mentioned, I've been studying the budget here proposals, and it's 100 and some pages long for us to study. So that's pretty time consuming. I also mentioned at the last meeting that I was doing a market analysis of 11 Time Warner, and I have further information on that to share later in the meeting here tonight. And I have kind of put that emergency preparedness on hold while we're working on the budget here, just so I can focus on that.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Councilman Frazier. Okay, at this point, we should turn to Superintendent Ed Kading, our town highway super, who's going to give us his report. Can we, here he is. Ed, go ahead, because you can speak loudly and it'll pick up here. You have to speak a little bit louder, I guess.
Now you're good.
Are we good? Okay.
Can we hear him?
So a few projects that we're on, we did the shouldering on Quinlan and Still. We have to thank Dutchess County Soil and Water. They came in hydro-seeded most of it. I don't believe they finished Quinlan yet. But as the fact that they're doing it for free, I'm not going to push them, but I would like them to finish. So that project is done. We used the material that we created ourselves in August from the massive pile that was behind the highway garage. The crew has been out patching, doing some pothole patches. The bigger project that projects they've been working on is there's a lot of our cross pipes in the town roads that are settled. They've been out filling those settled cross pipe divots in, making the roads much smoother.
We have had a little issue lately with road signs either being vandalized or stolen. Brush Hill had the stop sign. Somebody actually drove right over top of it, what looked like an ATV or something of that sort. And then went across the road and they knocked the stop sign down on Flint. I understand it's a kind of a practical joke, but at the end of the day, it's a very dangerous joke because somebody that's not used to the roads will fly through a stop sign that's not there. So we gotta try to, I did make a sheriff's report on it, so hopefully something will come of it. The other thing that's going on here of late, and I kind of get it because money's tight everywhere, but people are now throwing car and truck, heavy truck tires on the side of the road. So we're having to pick those up as part of our duties now. But that's an expense to the town at the recycle center because the town has to pay per tire to get rid of them. We just have a few more cross pipes to fill in. Potholes are always going to be, so we'll be on that probably for eternity. The one other thing that is needs to be brought up to the board's attention is we do have an old pickup truck. I believe it's a 2001 that no longer will pass inspection. We turned the plates in, so it's not even registered anymore. I'd like to put that truck on auction with the board's approval. And there's no point in having it. It's just going to rot away. I did reach out to the Parks Department. That truck has brand new tires on it. So we will probably give, if the parks can use the tires on one of their vehicles, we'll give them the tires and take the other tires that Parks has. So that's pretty much all we have for now, unless there's something else.
Well, I would say that we can,
Sorry, Betsy, I just accidentally unmuted you. Okay.
I would suggest that if tell us a little bit more about the truck. It's, you want to go ahead and put it on auction, then we should discuss that now.
Yeah, I'd like
We'll
to-
get into this, we'll surplus it, right?
Yeah, we can put it in surplus and you can auction it off. It's, if that's your decision.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it, the surplus truck.
All in favor of surplusing the truck?
Aye.
Just described, if you could describe it one more time for the record.
It's a 2001 Chevy Silverado single cab. It's got 240,000+ miles on it. So it's well served the town.
I'm
Yeah.
taking it off that insurance record tomorrow.
Should already be off.
All right. Yeah, all in favor of surplusing the 2001 Chevy Silverado, say aye. Any opposed? No, motion carries. Feel free to do very much.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
make that happen.
Take it off. I remember.
No, Ed, is that truck gonna have to be replaced in the future, or?
I believe that truck was replaced by the new truck that was purchased in 2019.
I believe so too.
I think the parks were supposed to get it. I don't know what the whole deal was, but
Yeah,
it's nothing that the parks will want, other than the tires.
yeah.
Great.
So,
Terrific. Thank you very much. So we've got more coming up a little bit later in the agenda, so just to take care of this option. And we're going to go through the highway aspect of the budget first, so that if after that you feel like it's, feel free. Thank you very much for that report. At this point, I'd like to ask the town clerk if you'd like to give a report.
I would, thank you. In terms of talking about the recycling center, a favorite place of mine, this week we were working on the passes for 2021. So last year we did magnets, they were okay. This year we're considering doing a hanging tag that would get hung from someone's rearview mirror. This way it could be taken down after they leave the center, and also transferable if they have different vehicles, you know, that they take from the same household. So as you can see here, this is what it will look like. This is a sample template. Please let me know what you think, but it is of course a cost savings from even last year, which is always a bonus. And that's all I have for this month.
Very good idea.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It will help everybody recognize, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll recognize right when they drive in if they have a permit or not. It'll be a lot easier for everybody. That's fantastic. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Now, at this point, we have public comments on agenda items. I would think that if somebody, do we know,
Everyone kind of,
you can raise your hand. Hi, Sue, would you like to go first? Mrs.
Yeah,
Kilcrease, rather.
I'll be quick. I
minute.
know you have a busy night, but I do want to
Hold on,
actually,
Sue, can't
What?
hear you. Hold on one second.
Turn your speaker on.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
I want to thank you. I see that there's a resolution later on tonight that you are considering for allowing the campaign signs to go up a week early. And I appreciate the fact that you're considering that. I think in the, I already wrote you a letter, so you know my reasoning, but I think in, this year, especially with the pandemic, there's been so few ways that the candidates can get their name out there, can get recognition, and this is just one of the few ways. As we all know, voting has started. People are really using the mail-in votes, and early voting starts next week. So I think this is a smart move and, a considerate move on the town boards on their ability to consider this resolution. So thank you so much for putting that on. And I hope it passes.
Good lobbyist.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. All right, is there anybody else? If you could put your video on so we could, like Mrs. Kilcrease did, then we'll know that you want to say something.
Nothing from me on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I don't think so. All right. So at this point, we'll go on to the committee or council reports, first being CAC. Councilman Welsh, do you mind reading that one?
Yes, we have a report.
Hang on, unmute.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Okay. We have a report dated October 15th from the Conservation Advisory Council, which is commonly known as the CAC report, submitted by Aki Bush, our chairman. She writes, due to the virus, the CAC felt it prudent to postpone summer events, but on Saturday, October 3rd, it did go ahead with its first 2020 Food for Thought event. By all accounts, it was a grand success. Benelli's food truck serving hot dogs, pretzels, and other casual food was present for picnickers by 6 o'clock, and at 7, 2 short films about local environment, one titled A Living River and the other Farmscape Ecology by local filmmaker John Bowermaster, were screened in the bandshell. To promote the community event, a flyer had been sent out the week prior to a variety of social media venues, as well as by Unionville mail to town residents. There were between 30 and 40 attendees, a pretty good turnout, we thought, for a brisk October evening. All thanks to CAC member Rachel Von Wetberg and Unionville events planner Wendy for organizing this great evening. The CAC is also thrilled to announce that Jen Rubo, is that proper pronunciation?
Yeah.
Director of the Environmental Cooperative at the Vassar College Barns, has agreed to join the CAC. Jen and her family live in Unionville, and she has worked on City of Poughkeepsie NRI, so her expertise on the drafting and implication of the NRI will be of great value to us. I will mention I did go to that event on October 3rd, the 2 films, and it was very worthwhile, interesting topics, and I was glad to see so many people did attend.
Yeah, it's fun evening. Really fun. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our departmental report for the evening. And we're reading a lot of reports instead of having people in for a lot of reasons, obvious COVID reasons, but also we have budget work to do. Councilman Frazier, do you mind taking care of recreation?
Sure. Recreation submitted by Allison Crowe. Thank goodness there's Time Warp program and Halloween movie night. Both our TGTT full day and after school programs are in full swing as most of the schools in the area transition to hybrid learning. Parents can take full advantage of the full day program from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on virtual learning days, or the after school program from 2:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. for regular school days. Transportation is available from Arlington Central School District. There's still room to sign up. And on October 30th, Time Warp Park is hosting a Halloween movie night. This is a free event. We'll be showing It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown at 5 p.m. and Hocus Pocus at 6 p.m. Bring your chairs and blankets and enjoy food from the Lots 3 America's food truck and Caboose on the Loose ice cream truck. We're encouraging everyone to wear costumes for photo ops. Social distancing and COVID precautions will be in effect.
By the way, they have a pretty large number of people already signed up for that. And so today we began talking about, the town's responsibility as far as COVID protections and how we're going to manage that. So that will be taken care of properly on the night of the event. But it looks like it'll be a fun night for the kids. As far as old business goes, I mentioned the solar development on Route 55 and where we are with that. I'm not going to cover that again. I do want to talk about the annexation project that we are embarking on, and that means annexing Time Warp Park parcels in the town of Beekman. There's a couple of things that we wanted to go over. So, we came up, there is this thing called altering the town boundary lines, and so where you can annex the boundary lines of a town. And typically it's been done rarely in New York State, but by statute it's permitted. And it gets done when, a city and a town, somebody wants to take, the water and sewer district in here, so they'll cover the payments for it or whatever. There's lots of reasons for doing it. But we were advised early, a while ago from Dutchess County Planning that, they were wondering why we hadn't done it 20 years ago. So we spent a lot of time with our attorney in the last work session, and we want to make sure everybody understands the process of what we're embarking on. The town board has passed a resolution about annexation, and I'm going to read that in a second and then let you know where we stand. But I have to say, based on what Mrs. Kilcrease said earlier, and this project to annex these 5 parcels, which is 76.9 acres. So it's a good sum, but it's less than 100, which is in the statute. It would be a really wonderful thing at the end of next year if we had the beginnings of a library that Ralph Connor wanted so badly in the park, and our 100% of Time Warp Park parcels in our town. I think it would be a wonderful gesture and good thing for the town. So because of a lot of reasons mentioned in this, and I think, we were on that attorney-client meeting for a long time last week, arm wrestling about trying to get the wording right, but I'm going to read the resolution 20-34 on annexation so that the town residents will understand our reasoning, and then we'll talk about what's happening next. Whereas between 1971 and 1978, the town of Unionville was deeded 500 acres by gift from Gene McKinney Connor, which lands make up the town's Time Warp Park and Time Warp Forest. And whereas 76.9 acres of Unionville's Time Warp Park and Forest, consisting of 5 tax parcels, the parcels, are physically located in the adjoining town of Beekman. And whereas the parcels are all unimproved and uninhabited, and taken together are contiguous to the town of Unionville. See the deeds and Dutchess County parcel access map and printouts annexed to at Exhibit A hereto, and also to a proposed annexation petition at attachment 1 hereto. And whereas 3 of the parcels, number 2, 4, and 5, as deeded by gift to Unionville, are entirely in the town of Beekman, and 2, numbers 1 and 3, were gifted to the town, to Unionville by deeds which included lands both located in both Unionville and Beekman. In our resolution, there are the 5 parcels listed with the parcel tax numbers, which I will include in the record, and people can always come to the town clerk's office and get a copy of this. And whereas in the past, the town of Beekman intermittently and without advance notice to the town of Unionville chose to classify the parcels as taxable property, which according to a review, which only goes back to 2007, has cost the town of Unionville in excess of $90,000 in tax money through 2019. Whereas because the parcels are outside of the town of Unionville, our constables who patrol Time Warp Park and Forest have no jurisdiction to act while on them. And as a result, the parcels have not been regularly patrolled. And whereas beginning in 2018, Unionville attempted to erect a cell phone tower on one of the parcels, at 43 DeForest Lane, parcel number 5. And whereas the proposed tower would have filled coverage gaps and improved both emergency service responsibility as well as service to the residents of Unionville, Beekman, surrounding towns, and the traveling public. And whereas Beekman opposed Unionville's effort to utilize its property to the point of suing to block the project, the lawsuit is Town of Beekman versus the Town of Unionville Town Board, Dutchess County, and there's an index number. You could look it up. We can give you a copy of that decision because Beekman was unsuccessful in that lawsuit. And whereas the State Supreme Court Justice Hal B. Greenwald on May 11, 2020, held that Unionville's seeker process and its determination that it should conduct the review of the cell phone tower project following a Monroe County Airport Authority balancing analysis were valid and of full effect. ... And whereas the Town of Beekman has appealed Justice Greenwald's order, but has yet to perfect that appeal. And whereas Unionville's efforts to obtain state legislative approval for the use of Parkland Parcel 5 for the cell tower have been impeded and blocked. And whereas in sum, the Town of Unionville has for many years been unable to have full use of the lands which were gifted to it. And whereas Unionville, in order to assure that it will have the governmental control of its lands, has proposed to proceed with a petition under General Municipal Law, Article 17, to annex the parcels so they will be part of the Town of Unionville. And whereas before formally proceeding with the petition to annex, this town board requested that the Town of Beekman join Unionville in the effort to annex the parcels to Unionville. A copy of the request letter was forwarded on August 20th and is annexed to is Exhibit C in this package. And whereas the Town of Unionville has received no response whatsoever from the Town of Beekman on that invitation, now therefore be it resolved that after due deliberation, the consideration of the foregoing, and a review of the Environmental Assessment Form Part 1 annexed hereto, Exhibit D, Supervisor Moss is authorized to execute said Part 1 as drafted. Be it further resolved that the Town of Unionville is hereby determines that the proposed annexation involving less than 100 acres is an unlisted action under seeker. And be it further resolved that the Town of Unionville determines that it wishes to serve as lead agency for a coordinated seeker review of this annexation, and the town clerk is authorized and directed to give notice thereof to the Town of Beekman, which is the only involved agency, together with copies of this resolution. Be it further resolved that the supervisor is authorized to execute, publish, post, and otherwise notice and proceed with the petition for annexation, which is annexed here too. Be it further resolved that the supervisor and Councilman Welsh are authorized to contact and meet with the Town of Beekman to attempt to set an agreed date, time, and place for a joint hearing. Be it further resolved that failing their ability to reach an agreement as to such joint hearing, the supervisor is authorized to schedule a hearing at the Town of Unionville Town Hall within the dates allowed therefore by General Municipal Law 7042. So basically, I think that's enough of that reading, but it's pretty lengthy. I apologize, but it gives a pretty thorough account as to why we feel strongly about annexing the lands. And also, you know, in our letter of August 20th, we wrote the Beekman Town Board and said, listen, we're going to have this 50th anniversary celebration next year. We would really like it if you would join us and be part of that celebration, since they have been, you know, their residents have used Time More at that southern portion a lot. So we're hoping this this will progress nicely. Now, I will say that the town board was waiting, and Councilman Welsh and I did reach out on email to try to set up something with our two boards or with 4 people or whatever they would agree to. But their attorney, our attorney, and their attorney have been talking. And then just today, the Town of Beekman has agreed to join us in the joint hearing. So in the joint public hearing, which is big news for us and very good.
Yeah, very good.
So now for the town board, gentlemen, if you would listen to these dates, the Town of Beekman has suggested that we meet on Monday, November 23rd. Now that's the week of Thanksgiving, but it is a Monday night. And in talking with our attorney, Mr. Nelson today, we discussed that we could have the joint hearing. They suggested that we have it at Unionville. And we thought the only way we could do it is to, and we want to hear the thoughts about this. And so we want to have it. And I know I talked to Councilman Derland earlier and he was saying, it's really nice when you can have it in person, and it really is. But on the week of Thanksgiving, some people may not want to come in. But we were thinking
What was the date?
Monday, November 23rd.
November.
Yeah, November 23rd. And we're thinking if we did it in the Long Barn, now that we have that enhanced Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
we could offer it in person or on Zoom. And people could still sign up like every public hearing with the town clerk, so we could have a list of speakers, of people that want to share their thoughts. And that both town boards would be present. But people could have their choice to come in person. We'll use that barn so everybody can be 6 feet apart. We have to take the measurements to know what the maximum capacity is. I don't know yet. It's a very long space, but, and then we can, everybody else not wanting to come in public could be on Zoom, and we could still have as many comments as people were interested in sharing. So do you all feel, with the Monday that night, the 23rd, work on your calendars?
I have commitment at Wappingers, but I'll have, based on the topic of that meeting, I might be able to get out of there.
Okay,
I'll check on that.
all right, great. Councilman McGivney, you think so? Great, okay. You're good?
I'm good,
Councilman
yeah.
Welsh? All right, I'm good. So I'll talk to the attorney. We have an appointment at 9:30 tomorrow morning. I'll share that information with him and we'll notice it properly and get it done. So that is our annexation topic. We wanted to bring we'll find out what happens at the attorney at the public hearing, and just to let the public know, we would love for you to come and share your thoughts on the record. The thing about annexation is what our town board has to ultimately decide is this annexation in the best interest in the town of Unionville? The residents of the town of Unionville are obviously our responsibility. And the statute says that's really the bar that we have to hit. Is this in the best interest of our residents? So that is what we're going to be listening to comments about. Thank you all very much. I'm sorry that took so long, but we felt it was important
worthwhile.
to know what we all have been going through and trying to do. Next up is the tentative budget. And after the tentative budget is complete, we're not taking any action. We're just talking. Then we're going to go to resolutions and motions, and then we will conclude the meeting. So at this point, I'm going to put everything off and the regular agenda over here, and we can start the meeting. The budget review. So since Superintendent Kading is here, I thought we could start with highway,
Page 22, right?
which is on, I have weird numbers too, because I have there's the general fund portion on, I have that on 72. Are those numbers corresponding with yours, guys? Well, we don't have to actually.
Yeah, I've got highway at 72.
Okay, but we can also look at the front pages unless, Ed's got the front section, and that is probably 22, right, John?
Yeah.
Councilman Welsh, sorry.
All right.
Okay, so that is, on page 22 has the total transportation budget, everything lined up on one page. And then if we want to dive into the details, we can go back to the Excel spreadsheet. So perhaps we start with 22. Now, one thing that everybody needs to realize about this, because I know Councilman Derlin and Councilman McGivney, this is your first year looking at this. When we change for example, the budget officer, the tentative budget column, because this is all connected on Excel spreadsheets, it automatically changes the two columns to the right. So just if you would focus on the third column from the right in every discussion we're having tonight, those things are not decided upon. They just get pre-filled when we make changes. We have to overwrite it to make changes for preliminary and then final. So just so you know that those numbers are just, they should mirror what's in the tentative because it goes automatically. So on 22, Ed, if you want to look there, it's kind of a nice summary because of your stuff being in both the A fund and the D fund, the highway. So we have the general repairs. Went down a little bit from the amended budget from 2020. We can look at the details, but we've got the personal services, which is really labor, that's gone up just a little bit. The permanent improvements, now, that number, so that number, year-to-date actual is 485. See that? I don't have to tell Ed we did this. The year-to-date actual for 2020 says 485,000 under next to permanent improvements on page 22. And that's because there was fund balance left over. So it looks like we outspent by a big margin what was in the budget for 2020. See where it says 302?
2019.
But it was the 2019 money that had been spent that we put over into it. So that's why that looks like it does. Now, that number goes down in 2021, as Ed and I have discussed, because the CHIPS money is going to be reduced. We had to put that into the budget, that expectation. But we did take a little bit of money. We did take a little bit of, we learned a lot looking at all the overtime that had been paid in the last 10 years. I guess we did I gave Ed a bunch of numbers that he and I reviewed. And what we discovered was that the overtime had been quite large in almost every year, very large. I mean, the highest year, one year was 41,000, but a lot of it was 35,000, 37,000, a lot of overtime. And basically, since, I think it was 5,500 and 7,000 the last 2 years I've been here, we just had this rule that we set up with no overtime, and it worked. Ed doesn't, use that unless he has to. So he felt comfortable reviewing the history and where we were, taking some of that overtime money, and we put it in permanent improvements because you're trying to put as much money in there. And other than that, I would say there isn't much else to go over with Ed's. Those were the highlights of the changes we made.
What is that line 5110.2?
All the zeros? And then
Right,
25,000
yeah, and then it's dropping down to 15.
Let me look.
Under personal services.
Oh, that's in the D fund? Hold on. I can have the specifics in the. Oh, that was the capital reserve. So we had 25 last year in the budget, and then we put 25 in from the fund balance, if you remember. We opened up last year, in 2000, at the beginning of the year, remember we opened up putting in 5,000, and then we kind of saw how the year went. We put in 25, and then at the beginning of 2020, we put in 25,000 as voted on for the from the fund balance that we had, because there was over $400,000 fund balance in highway since those projects didn't get done. So, and then this year, I'd forgotten I put in 15 for this year, which is a lot lower. And I have to write that down because I thought at one point we talked about going down to 0, but if the numbers worked on the front, then we're fine.
So why is that rating currently at 0?
Tell me which one.
Actual year to date.
Same line. Year-to-date number is 0. Shouldn't it be 25,000?
I think if I go back and look, the reason it would be 0 is we probably voted on and did it in December instead of January. But I'll have to look at what month. If we didn't put it in, we may have voted right at the end of the year because we knew we had all that. I have to just look at what date. We went through and did everything. This was like the 2020 actual year to date was not yesterday. It would have been done in August. And so that means we probably did it in December in the actual year. But fund balance was 25, budget was 25, and then 5 from that original budget the previous year when we started it. So we've got $55,000 in there now. But that would be why it's just it's a date thing, Steve.
All right, so you're saying that there is money in there.
Yeah, I thought I had taken it out, but I see it, and I want to double check the front numbers and make sure everything equals out because they should. And as long as they're what we expected, then we have 15 in there, which is good.
Well, I mean, if
It's in
the
there.
25 was there and we're adding 15, we should have 40 total. And you're saying there's 55.
Appreciate you.
I'm talking about in the capital reserve account now.
Okay.
At New York class, we have it invested at New York class. $55,000 in a capital reserve fund from previous contributions. This 15 is a recommendation for what we can afford in 2021. It hasn't been put in yet.
We'd have 70 if we approved that.
Okay, well, I thought we started this last year with the 25,000. And if we're adding 15, to me, that says 40, plus some interest if we invested it. But,
We,
saying there was some money previous to the 25,000?
yeah, do you remember that first vote? It was, we started at 5,000 when we started the capital reserve. I don't know if you remember
Oh, yeah,
that.
for a placeholder, I do recall that now.
Yeah, and then what we did was, we waited till the, later in the year when we saw how the money was going. And we put 25,000 in from fund balance ultimately, but before that, we put $25,000 in from the budget. So the fund balance is not reflected here, so you wouldn't see it. You'd see that on a separate statement. For example, when I share the cash balances with you, there's a cash balance for the highway reserve fund, and it shows 55.
Okay.
So this year, we've got 15 in there. We wanted the departmental budget, which shows here, we wanted to put 25 in like last year. We just can't afford it, so it's down to 15. And if we find that we can't afford that with any other changes we make, then we would probably propose to allocate it out of fund balance if we can. But it's there right now. Permanent improvements. Again, CHIPS is going down. It was 143. We had to drop it to 113.
Oh, by the way, thanks for submitting all that detail into the state to make sure we got our CHIPS money this year.
Other towns got cut 20%.
I heard that, so thanks for keeping us first and getting all our money for us. That was a big help.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much. That was,
That new number you're saying, that the count, they already gave us a hard number for what we're getting cut.
we've already been reimbursed.
No, but you're saying in the budget.
Oh, they've already told us,
143 down to 113, whatever it is.
they've told us that.
They already told you that.
Yeah.
But now there's a couple things there that we have to remember. It's funny, they tell us that on one hand, but then they tell us that Cuomo actually has unbelievable power over his own budget. So there are two things. One, he can cut that again, although they really push him hard for infrastructure and they try to get him, hold his feet to the fire, but he can on his own. He can also take sales tax and not give it to the counties. I mean, he can do a lot. He has the power. The legislature gave him the power to retain the individual county sales tax
Wow. That
For-
could be crippling.
the use for the state budget. So he's got power that makes all,
Not broad.
it's that broad. They gave him the power, I guess, last.
He could take, like, just touch his counties and then keep it. And then-
Well, I don't know if he could, I don't know if that would be, I don't know if he can take he might say, I'm taking 20% from the whole state.
Yeah.
I'm taking 40%. I'm not giving you anything. I mean,
Very scary.
it is really scary that first of all, that he has that much power. It seems odd, but to withhold that much money from local governments, but he can. So we're vulnerable. CHIPS, I think they do push him on infrastructure and I think they believe in it. But the sales tax, he's $13 trillion in the hole. I don't know what's going to happen. And so now we have a contract with the county. What's in our budget for sales tax is what we're contractually given by the county. It's the minimum. But we don't have any guarantee. And that's another reason, back to Glenn Morrison's question, thank God we have fund balance, because some of these things were really, as with any budget, you're guessing. It's just a guess. So,
Oh, estimate.
yeah, we're doing our best, but any other questions about highway? You good? All right.
Should we do the roof?
You want to do that so
And
Ed
then
doesn't have to
Ed
sit through
doesn't- the meeting
the.
starts very early.
I don't mind that at all. If that's it.
Me too.
No, bitter end for you. Okay, so let me just look. We all have in here our packages, information. Now, the town board has, this came up to me last meeting, I think, and then you gave us 3 bids. Do you,
Yeah.
Ed, do you want to just explain? I gave everybody a copy of the bid that you chose. They've already seen it on email. They've already been to, I think everybody's been to look at the salt shed.
Yeah.
Let me mute myself. Ed, you go on in and explain it to us.
What do you,
Well, you did cover it all at the Zoom meeting you attended.
right?
The town board got all the estimates. You chose JP Remodeling and Renovations, who's the
Right.
sole proprietor.
Well, he actually gave us the most complete proposal for everything. He was, at the end of the day, he was the low bidder, but the most complete bidder.
Right.
So we're going with him. He came highly recommended by one of the board members as well. So we're gonna go with him. So hopefully this winter we'll be spreading salt instead of brine on the roads. Because with the hole in the roof, it melts the salt in the brine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we tried many times with the state to get a grant to replace it, and we don't really get a clear picture why they didn't do it, because we seem to have all the criteria to justify a grant, but it didn't happen.
And just before we, and you can make that motion if you don't mind, but just beforehand, there was some back and forth between town board members about the project, and I know that all the town board members went and looked at it, but is what I've been told. But then Councilman McGivney, you had written a nice response about, how we pay for it, I just wanted to comment, for the roof project, we had $12,362 from that abandoned equipment. We are under budget in the highway superintendent training. We took $2,053. We're gonna have to vote on this ultimately, this is where the money would come from. We would take $2,053 away from the training. There's, we're under budget in another one of the propane lines, 5132.4, and there's still some room left in maintenance and repairs for the highway garage, which is where this is paid for, contributed to. 3,500, came up with 3,585 for there, which totals 20,000. Project at 20. So the money is there to pay for it. And you pick the bid you wanted. So I think unless anybody has any other discussion or questions of superintendent, would we like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the replacement of the salt shed roof at the highway garage and accept the lowest bidder by JP. And ask our, sorry. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the replacement of the roof on the salt shed at the highway garage because of its poor condition, and recommend that we accept the lowest bid that was issued by JP, and ask Ed to contact them and get the work done as soon as possible.
In addition to that roof, they're also replacing the corner trim.
Okay.
And the soffits.
All right,
So it's a little more than just.
as outlined in the bid. Okay.
Correct.
Terrific, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting JP's remodeling and renovation bid?
Aye.
Repairing the salt shed, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, educating. I know you're ready to get started, and I think that's going to start next week, so thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, you can stick around for the rest of the budget. You sure? We'll fill you in later? Okay. All right, thank you very much for being here. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow, Ed. All right, now we'll continue. Now, what we could do is, again,
Take it with you.
give her a run. He's bad. Okay, here we go. So what we could do now, I did write some assumptions on the inside page of the budget. Has everybody had a chance to review those? So you kind of know where the holes are. I think there is one place.
John's mic is still on. It's gonna make an echo for the listeners.
Okay, just, are you muted? Yeah, John, muted.
Is it muted?
Oh, yeah. There it is.
Okay. All right. So there's a few things in here if we want to go through highlights. We did try and I've had conversations with you as individuals. I think that we did really want to try to keep the budget, the town portion of the budget, flat because of the burden that our residents have already, that's been imposed on all of them. And there was a lot of tweaking that went into this budget. And Mrs. Kilcrease mentioned one of them, that allocation from the library went down because this is the number that we've been told that it will take to provide those services to our residents. In addition, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the contingent fund. Now, it didn't make sense to me to put a sum of money in the contingent fund, although we've used it since I've been here. We've used, I think most towns would use it. Even last year we put Zoom on it. Remember, anything that, we hadn't thought about. But this year, because it seemed like a moot point, because if we go in the red a little bit and we have to use unallocated fund balance to cover that and anything else, to make our taxes go up to put $60,000 in a contingent fund makes no sense. We're just going to vote on using fund balance anyway. So that's why normally I'm really all for it. I didn't even want to take it from 100 down to 60 last year, but we hardly used it this year. But I wanted to make sure that the reasoning that we discussed that because, at some point as we get going, if COVID gets better and we are allowed to have more events and revenues coming in, we may want to amend the budget or set up a contingent fund so that little expenses can come out of there quickly just with a quick vote. But anyway, that's the reason why I took that down to save that 60,000. I think that for next year, normally, if we get into a regular year next year, we can put it right back in there. We've had a lot of different people tell us, our healthcare, health insurance costs that Mr. Morrison pointed out are really up primarily because of new people wanting to take advantage. The only thing I can say about that these are things for us to talk about is, we repaired, there was some damage done when everything was just slashed, previously, and some of the employees took a 13% pay cut when the insurance bill was changed, where they had to pay 100% of their deductible and they had to pay a lot. So we did make those changes. I know when I first came on, that was a concern of the board members and mine. And one of the reasons people were, the employees were feeling beleaguered because they took a 13% pay cut from that. We changed our health insurance so that we pay 100% of the deductible and the premiums are split 80-20. One of the things that we could look at as a cost savings is looking at maybe taking the deductible to an 80-20. Now, I hesitate to do that. I mean, this is only personal opinion and we all have an opinion about it, but the reason, and I want to plant that seed so we can talk when we get there, is that, we're recommending a 3% pay raise for the employees for doing a good job. And then to take it away by, for those, but now you're going to pay part of your deductible. Yeah, it feels like, I know we're going to end up the year safe because we've had a good savings. We've got our rainy day fund. I feel like we can probably swing this one more year, but if, let's say the amount of people, we actually have a lot of part-time people. We don't have a lot more people that would even get on insurance. So this, to me is something maybe we could ride with for a year, but if somebody wants to discuss a split, then, of the deductible, it should be on the table like anything else. So that was another thing to mention to you. The building department activity is up. We're also looking at those fees. Mr. Kolb explains to me that those fees haven't been raised in 8 years, 10 years, something. He said a very long time. And he keeps track of some of the things where we're under market on. And so I've asked him to, put a list together and come back to us, and that will help revenue, and it will help. It's kind of something you select to embark on. I don't think, does it matter to you when you get a building permit if it's $25 more or not? I'm not sure. You do that once in a lifetime or maybe twice.
It should be comparable to surrounding.
Yeah, more market rates. So he's going to do a study.
That's a long time ago without any increase.
Yeah, we haven't had any. So the recycling vendor fees are up 3% is what I'm guessing. I was surprised that our IT provider came back and sent us, we sent out requests, please let us know what your fees are going to look like next year. We're preparing our budget. The IT people are going up 5%. And I did send them a note wondering why in a year like this, I know they've had a tough time as everybody had, but I was just wondering how they came up with that number, but I haven't heard back from them yet. I will, but after tonight's meeting. But also all of our recycling vendors, all of them have told us they're raising their fees. I put in, I'm guessing 3%. Some of them are going to raise them more. And that includes Royal Karting, who's going to raise their fees. So, it gets to the point with the recycling center where the only thing I could think of is if those fees go up based on the estimates I put in here, then one thing we could think about is, since we have two gentlemen working there now and they're both working 24 hours, it won't affect them. It's not like they're going to go below and become part-time employees where they don't get a vacation or something. It won't affect them that way. But one of the thoughts was to close a little early on Wednesdays, because Wednesday afternoon would be this, Saturdays and Sundays busy.
Right.
Busy early, busy late. Wednesdays, it seems like the mornings are busy, but the afternoons are the slowest out of the three that we have.
Mhm.
And a couple of vendors I spoke to said, you guys are open a lot of hours for your type of shop. And so it's on the table for discussion. If we closed early on Wednesdays. And that would give us a savings. It would give us a savings of $5,000, a little bit more. But also what it enables us to do is, and that's in pure labor cost, we've got to start putting some money aside for the recycling center. It's a great resource. The residents love it. It's cheaper than the products out there. But they're going to need a new booth.
Definitely.
At some point, we're going to want one of those refurbished containers to be brought in, because we do rent one from Royal Karting that is a waste of money, depending on how you look at it. So, we want to try to have a little extra in recycling to put it aside and invest in. Not a big amount. But,
Yeah, no, it's essential to get a little more revenue there. Hopefully, membership will increase. I think we ought to make a push on our town advertising opportunities, like the town channel, Facebook, and Unionville Mail, anywhere we can to encourage.
When they're ready and when we're kicking off, yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely do that. And, the business, it's up this year. It's just that with the minute we get a burst of activity because of people being at home and COVID, now all the vendors are going to turn around and raise the rates. So as we've said before, we don't want to run any of our departments at a loss. Well, we have to. Legally, we have a courthouse that runs at a loss, but that's a legal thing that we have to provide that. We don't have the Taconic running through town where we have a lot of tickets. We run a court, so there are departments we would run at a loss. We also run even with our building department, but that is a service. That is one of the best services that we offer to our residents. The building department, the assessors, there's a few that just provide pure service. They're not supposed to produce revenue, and that's great. It's good for our residents. Recycling center, however, can run flat, and hopefully if we get this much out and we put it aside each year, we can invest in it.
Part of running flat, covering your infrastructure.
Yeah, right, that's true. So anyway, so those are thoughts. Our rec department, if we get a full year out of it, it would be awesome for us, because even though we bring in gross revenue on recreation, we pay a lot out in salaries. We employ a lot of people in the summer. Our target is, at this stage, we don't lose money there anymore, but our target is to make 45 or 50,000 to put back into the general fund, so that all those non-residents that use our services are contributing, to us and helping us with our tax, keeping our tax levy down. So that's always been, that's the goal since, we revamped it 2-3 years ago. That was as our goal, and they've been helping us get there. Hopefully next year will be the same. We know interest income was tanked this year, the beginning, right in March. So we had a lot in the budget for interest income, because we were doing so well with our fund balance. We were getting a lot in interest on it until rates tanked in March. And so now that went down 70%. That also hurt us this year. The upgrades I want to talk about from our IT provider. I just want to talk about them at a different meeting, because I've asked them to rerun some numbers. And I've got when we signed up with Sullivan Data, one of our reasons with signing up with a professional company was to keep us safe, we have offsite servers. So even if somebody hacked and tried to blackmail us, we have offsite servers that, we could recover the information the next day. We've done a lot of smart things with IT. And one of the things we elected to do at that point was put dollars in the budget every year to keep our equipment upgraded. And we have, on the list, they have, I think, 5 or 6, I can't remember, 5 or 6, been a couple of weeks since I looked at it, computers that are on deck to be replaced this year. And I wanted to talk to you about that. We'll have a separate IT discussion because there's some good ideas and I asked them to reprice it and we'll see what it comes back to. So that might go down. So, and that was really, I think those are the highlights. I've talked about Furnace Pond Dam. You guys are all, I know you're on pins and needles waiting for that report. The other projects that we had on deck were, we shortened our long list, which was very expensive, to a shorter list. And the shorter list is, you know, I would suggest, I will tell you what the suggestions are. I know that our park manager would really like the long barn garage doors. Because it's this one I gave, remember I gave you separately?
Came with our papers tonight. It's the bottom.
What?
Steve, you want this one?
It's the very bottom.
I have another one. You got it? Okay. So our, the long barn garage doors, and this is more of, this is an energy thing, that they are eroding, as you know, they're wood and they're being eaten. You guys can see them from up here at Town Hall.
Yeah, they're rotting.
So those are rotting and we lose a lot of energy costs there. And Jake is already priced out. He's going to reprice them.
I don't know why we would lose energy. We don't heat that barn.
Well, I think they heat it. He told me that they lose a lot of
We don't
energy.
use it Only in the summer for art room for the.
Is that in our, I thought that was in our Central Hudson bill.
The long barn is the one that you can see like straight across.
The one that I talk about, number 8.
The maintenance building is the one that we, which is what you see on the left.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, let me revamp that then. So the only thing that we have in there is, oh, I gotta check that bill. All right, just for my own satisfaction. They are rotting. And if we're not heating it, it's probably less of an emergency, but it's his top preference. We know that until we get the Furnace Pond Dam engineering analysis, we may want to hold our powder. I was going to suggest we got the best price ever on that tennis court resurfacing. And we have people that will teach there. The summer camp people want to use it. They want to have a more embellished sports program and they want to include tennis. So they want, and that could, you know, maybe cost extra for people, but and we could figure out a way to, you know, we would set up lessons there maybe in the evenings and then we'd get a portion of that to maintain our tennis court. But we've looked far and wide and we can't get a cheaper price than that to refurbish it. So we want that because that's a revenue producer. And then the Furnace Pond Dam, we just need to wait and see. But those, the number 5 Furnace Pond Dam, you know, the estimates on the big project. Steve, you were really interested in number 6 at one point, and we could buy one, you know, here and there. And I know we could still break that up and we might only be able to afford to do that. But I'm wondering if, you know, because we have a short list here and we have.
Yeah, I'd like to move that to a top priority because the unit for this room here has had a catastrophic failure. It does not work. You know, and that's what I predicted would happen. And I really think we need to replace that.
So what we have to do then is, you know, maybe we don't do the garage barn doors if we know for sure we're not heating it.
Never needed that barn.
That's amazing. I was, okay, so, you know, maybe that one could be pushed down because that's, you know, it's.
They hardly ever open.
Yeah, they use them all summer and they use them for storage. You're right. Yeah. But it would definitely look better, but I thought, you know, it was an energy thing. So, okay. So we can, Furnace Pond Dam, let's wait and see. And we can make our short list with 3 items plus Furnace Pond Dam. Well, no, 2 items. If we would consider the tennis court, it's the least expensive we'll find. And I think the guy said he would hold his price 1 more year for us. And I think because it's a revenue producer and it's so inexpensive, it makes sense. But it will be based on the way they're talking about using it. They're very interested in that, the staff. And then we could move the air conditioning condensers up. And then we could hold the vote on this and the discussion until we get that report back. Because I think we're getting that report on the dam back at the end of this month or early November. So we might get that back and know for sure what our cost will be there, or at least close estimates before we have to vote on the final budget.
Good, okay.
So would you, why don't we take those three as our top three, the dam, the air conditioner, and the tennis court as the low-cost thing? And hold those for discussion, and if we're forced to make a, take care of it before the budget, then we can. But regardless, we're gonna be using fund balance. So this could be a vote at any time before we embark on a project.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so now we have that. Numbers 3, 5, and 6 are our top ones. To come back, okay?
Yeah, good.
All right, that's a big help. All right, and then I think that those were really my comments to share. We can now start on, we can start through the front budget and then dive into the details in the back. If you want, it might be quicker that way. Do you like doing it that way? See, looking at summaries and then moving and
Yeah, I
then,
think that's
okay.
a good idea.
All right, and I know people at home have that. So I will point out that if this budget passes close to this, and I'm certain it will, because the last 2 years we've tweaked it, we found some good things that we tweaked, but we haven't made big changes because we've got a pattern going on. But I will point out that the cost per thousand of assessed value of people's homes is $3.06 for their taxes for the
It's going
town.
down.
It went, last year it was 321, I think, but that's a really good deal. Actually, I know people, nobody likes to pay taxes, but I was gonna go, I haven't had a chance to look at, no, it was 306 last year. It's the same as last year, but in 2019, it was 318.
Did the assessments going up next
It
year?
went, well, we don't know. We don't know. I
I
think
would
that
think it should. I mean, based on the state's formula and the state's overseeing that.
they push like crazy. I had no idea how that worked, but my guess is they're pushing our assessor a lot, and
Yeah.
it may be time for us to go to a reevaluation, because they're going to push for that, which would be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be awful. But if we can avoid a reevaluation of everything, then that would be good for everybody. And the state might allow the assessor to, he just assesses the values, but if we have a good revenue year, we can still try to keep our taxes flat depending on
Sure.
how we do. So when people support our programs, it's success for us.
Mhm.
We watch every penny. I think, it doesn't mean because the assessments go up that we'll be raising taxes. We'll do the best we can,
Right.
but I have a feeling you're right. 4 to 8% is the rumor, but we don't know if they'll come down because of COVID. They might
Yeah.
not. So,
All right.
okay, so anybody else want to talk through these? I mean, on page 3, we have general government. That was the same. The Justice Court changed a little. No, it didn't really change.
Pretty much the same, yeah.
The supervisor, I think what we did there is last year, I put the assistant 100% in there, which drove the costs up. And then this year, what I did was I allocated, we have Wendy Fred has 3 part-time jobs here. And instead of putting it in just one line, because it
Right,
looks
spread
like,
it around.
yeah, so Wendy Fred is in the finance office that I'm responsible for. She helps with HR and payroll. She helps me probably at the most 10 hours a week, probably less. But that's doing, administrative stuff, which has been helpful, a godsend since we've gotten really busy. And then the third of her time is spent over, now she's working on event planning. And she's doing an excellent job. She did that flyer for the Halloween. She's in every meeting that we're having. Like, we
Yeah.
see that calendar up there, we planned all of next year, which I'll give you a tentative plan. And she's right in there with us. She's very quick to, she's been great with food truck, getting us food trucks and stuff. She's,
Oh, good.
yeah, so now her salary is paid in the finance office, the supervisor's office. Actually, I might have too much and I might have to move more into the finance office. In 3 different finance office, and then under the supervisor's line, and then in the event planning, which is under rec admin. Any questions about page 3?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Page 4 is tax collector. Budget, that's the budget officer's salary. The assessor, Now, remember, the assessor, the contractual amount, see the contractual expenditure? That's for Robert, because we have a shared services arrangement with, yes. But then with personal services, that's with the deputy assessor or Michelle. And we also get a percentage of that back in a monthly check from LaGrange. So there's offsetting revenue to this.
Right, that's good.
The town clerk went up just slightly because of probably just hours. I mean, just a little couple of extra hours. That was like, not even, it's de minimis here. It's less than it's $1,000. The attorney, I kept the attorney rates flat because, you know, we do a lot of work here. Even with Jim Nelson today, we were teasing him. Andrea and I were talking, we had to work back and forth with him for the last 2 days trying to get that resolution done today and then our annexation. And we have to get the notice done. So this is what we do here, just so you guys know. So we've got Jim on the phone and he said, okay, I'm going to write the notice. I'm going to do this. I'll do that. And I'm sitting there thinking, Jim, I think Andrea and I can do that. And we won't charge each other for it. And he goes, you're right. If you two do it, it's a lot cheaper. And that happens here a lot. So it helps us keep it. He laughed. He's not insulted. So Andrea and I are taking care of that notice. We'll send it to him. He can edit.
Good.
So we end up doing a lot of work here that normally the attorneys like to get paid for or will get,
Yeah, they do it, yeah.
He's a wonderful man. I'm just saying that he loves it if we grab some of his work. He doesn't complain. But so I kept the attorney budget the same because we're going to keep that pattern up, I guess. The engineer, we had 85 on page 5. The engineer is 85 this year because 45 of that, remember, was the engineering analysis that we approved for this dam for this year. That's in this year's budget. So I just figured that it's going to be a little bit less next year, but I also have the planner that we're sharing with LaGrange. She's in there. So in the engineering, because typically the planners work out of the engineering offices. So we've got some tentative hours at some guessing hours of what she might do. So that's where that number comes from. So it is a reduction from last year. Now, remember, again, fund balance, that dam and what they're going to want to do, more engineering work next year to pull together a complete contractual bid and all that, that's costly, but that's not in here. And it's just too wildly unknown to try to guess at what that might be. So these
So
are,
we find out, we'll deal with it.
yes, exactly. Yes. It sounds to me like there's this pattern about dams, and I talked to even Bob Balkind at the county about it at one point. There's this, they have a path, they go down, they first got our hazard class lowered, then they're going to do this, and the next year they're going to give us an idea of what we have to do soon this year. And then we're going to want to get prices on those various choices, and they're going to run interference on that for us. And
That's got to be done, so
once it's done,
it's done.
it's done. It'll be not hanging over our head.
Yeah, it's been a
So,
long-term.
yeah. So we'll make that decision when we have the numbers in front of us. So, but I think it's expensive. So, got our fingers crossed. Town buildings. That was, that Jake and I went through all of his budgets and we kept some of them the same, but we worked with, we brought it down a little bit and got rid of some miscellaneous stuff that he didn't feel like he needed. So, Andrea, our town clerk, is doing an excellent job managing our central storeroom or our printing and mailing. How about that? The equipment. You're under budget in all categories. I know. Still, take those kudos when you can. I send her her monthly, her year-to-date report, and she looks great. Under budget. You're ready to go.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have to, this is one thing I do need to change. We did get the bill from Dutchess County on the chargebacks, and they kind of, not surprisingly, but it was over 5,000. It's $5,063.18. So we're off. They went up a little bit last year. I had 5,000 in the budget because last year it was 4,884. So they went up 3.6% on their fees. So I do think we got to take this number up $100 just to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can do that, and then it won't change our end result, but we do want our numbers to be close. So that bill just came in. We got a couple things that just came in, so.
When does that due? Soon?
It is due on November 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I went through the insurance. I'm hoping that it will be a little lower than budgeted next year. The 65 is what one of their people told me verbally. He said, I don't even know, I would plug your budget with 65. But then since our meeting and since we gave them so much information, and they found out about, like good things. And by the way, I think we need to put this on the website, Clerk Casey. And that is that we are a town that you can't fly a drone over without permission, or park. You can't fly a drone over without permission in advance. So really, we're kind of a no drone town, so to speak. That helps us insurance wise.
Good.
I mean, we can't because we're so close to the airport. So legally, people, if they're aware, they have to know that. But since we won't allow it over Time Warner Park without permission in advance, and then we have to go get FAA permission, that actually helps us in our insurance. So.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a little. He didn't give me a quote on it. I told him, we just saved, he had it in there last year and I told him to take it out. And when we have our review of the numbers, he'll tell me what it was. But I said, no, you can't have that in here. We're a no drone town. or Time Warner is what the town is responsible for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Town properties, no drone.
Yeah. Now the taxes on town property, that is the amount of a little bit that's rounded up, the amount that we pay for the fire coverage on our parcels in the town of Beekman. The rest of those taxes have been removed. As you can see, we pay.
What about the property on 55?
That is in existence, but no, that's off. That's off.
How'd that get off? That's commercial property.
It's town-owned property.
Okay,
Grievance.
good. Great.
So everything, so this is where we are. We have nothing now because,
Excellent.
yeah. MTA, that's kind of is what it is. That's a tax.
Nobody's even riding those trains and we're paying the tax.
The constables, they're up a little bit. And remember where the labor costs went up, we pre-filled all the labor costs with the 3% raise. So you could see what that number would look like.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we have excluded elected officials typically from our raises because we do this out of the generous nature of our hearts and because we're devoted to our town. But we tend to do that. And so just as you have a number in mind, it's between 20 and 30,000 every time we give a raise is the annual cost. This year it's a little closer to 20 because we gave it to all full-time people working year round. Last year, I think we suggested a 3% increase for everybody across the board, which we really couldn't afford to do this year because of COVID, but to give all of our full-time people that are here year round, it's a little different than the summer guys. And I think they all understand that. It's a little over $20,000 in collectively to give a raise like that, just so you know.
Money well spent.
I'd like to comment on that for a moment. As you mentioned, we've gone a number of years with elected officials just volunteering not to take a pay raise. But at some point, we're going to have to reevaluate that. None of us are going to be here forever. And if we want to attract qualified people to run for these positions, then at some point we need to look at what the surrounding towns are paying on that and start thinking about making an adjustment to that.
Well, we did get a raise last year.
I agree with that, particularly with the supervisor's position. Like saying you're not gonna be here forever. I mean,
So particularly with the supervisor's position, like Steve said, we're not gonna all be here forever. That position, and I'm sure Betsy knows that she's put so many hours, and you know, the previous administrations too, that the pay doesn't necessarily match the amount of work that it really takes to run this town, right? I mean,
Well,
I don't know how everybody else feels, but you know, like Steve said, in order to attract quality candidates down the road, we're gonna have to really revisit that, particularly the supervisors.
You mean
salary.
2021?
I mean, not necessarily 2021, but
That's what I'm only looking at 21.
I know. Well, he was, I don't.
Right, I wasn't saying that we need to do it today, you know, economic conditions are such that, you know, I can agree to another year of this.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not gonna be here forever, and none of us are.
Yeah.
And we gotta start thinking that, you know, if we want to have quality replacements here, then that number has to match, you know,
yeah.
the quality people that we want to attract. I can say personally, since, you know, when I started this, the health insurance was included, and since I've started contributing to that, my monthly deposit on what we earn here has dropped almost 70. Well, I bet it's in excess of 75%. You know, like, you know, it's something we need to look at again, like if we're gonna get people that are qualified for the job
Mhm.
to come and be interested in it.
Yep. No, I think you're right. I think you're, it depends on how you know, it's funny when you look at all the smaller towns versus the bigger towns. The scale is so different, obviously, because of the tax revenue that they have.
Yeah.
If you look over at LaGrange, and they have a lot of staff, they have a lot of people, they have a comptroller, so the supervisor doesn't have to do, you know, the budget, like we do here. So he's probably, I think he's making $78,000, $79,000, $80,000 a year. You go to, in here, in our town, and all the smaller towns I talked to, so the salary for the supervisor, to your point, which is consistent with what Steve was saying, is, I think is a little over 20,000, and then there's 3,000 for the budget. So my pay would be 23,000, and if I check with Washington or the other small towns, they're the closest one to us, and even Rhinebeck, the town of Rhinebeck, which is bigger, she's making about the same. She might make 30,000. And it's one of those things with supervisors that if the supervisor's job function is to do the day-to-day management of the town, and we probably save a lot of money if you have a supervisor that does the day-to-day management of the town. But some towns, you know, like East Fishkill, LaGrange, they don't, you know, it's a whole different structure up there.
Yeah.
So it just depends on how you set the town up. This job was designed, it seems to me, for a retired person.
Yeah.
There's nobody that I know of that would work as a husband or a wife for $23,000 a year and have to work as many hours as you do here. So it's really, I think that, and a lot of these, even town board members, a lot of them are retired. They come to this position with expertise in something, or they're not retired, but they have expertise. So, you know, it's interesting the way they set it up years ago, and we can't afford an $80,000 a year supervisor. So you know, even if it were a little bit more, I hear what you're saying. but-
Steve's got a point.
Well, years ago, we didn't have all the state requirements to fulfill that we do now. You know, the state keeps
doing-
dumping
Oh my
more
gosh.
and
A lot
more
of state work,
responsibility on us. And, you know, initially, the supervisor job here in Little Unionville, well, it was a farm town. And it was just a part-time job, you know, but that has changed with all the regulations.
That's it.
And all, you know, how many more departments do we have now here at Town Hall than we did when this town was originally
Yeah.
created?
Yeah.
You know, there's been some major changes, but the salaries haven't adjusted the same way.
No, you're right.
And we're
And I-
running businesses. We're running a big park. We're running a recycling center. We're running a highway department.
Yep.
We're running a lot of things.
And we run and we give, I think that, and we had this conversation about why you thought the employees deserved a raise and how much you appreciated them. But, you know, our services, like you talk about building department with George Kolb and all the services that we offer, I think we have to decide. Some towns say, well, I'm going to save money in the building department and their service is bad. Here, we want good service and
Gotta pay for it.
we got to pay for it. And actually, we're flat in that department. We don't lose money.
Yeah, and I would say this year particularly shows how amazing our employees are here because everybody stepped up. And, you know, I work, and Steve does too, works in another town, and I work in a bunch of other towns doing contracting work, and everybody was shut down. And this town stayed open and stayed on top of it, better than any other town. And I think that just highlights how good of a staff that we have here and how we should reward that.
I agree, and I appreciate you saying that. And I tell you also with our building department, you know, George, you come in early in the morning. You know, we had it all worked out. We had a safety plan that we implemented. But I'll tell you, people from other towns were calling George Kolb to ask him building department questions because they couldn't get answers anywhere else. So I don't want to be, I don't know what the other towns were doing exactly, but I do know that, yeah, that they, and he would say, I don't really know how, you know, this is how I do it, but, you know, so you're absolutely,
We're out of here.
yeah.
Be back in 3 months.
Yeah. No, you're right. So I think those are great comments. I'll have to pass those on.
I mean, I know the economics don't necessarily warrant it this year, but I do think that next year, you know, things aren't too crazy next year that we should really consider looking at. I guess everybody, myself, I don't really care, but particularly for the amount of work that goes into this place, people need to be reimbursed
Yeah.
for it, especially here.
So we'll see how it goes. Let's, either way, we're hoping for a great year next year. How about that?
Yeah, I hope so.
So, and those are all really on target comments for sure. So if we go through town buildings, central garage, central storeroom, printing, mailing, I mean, we don't have much maneuverability in those, central processing. A lot of these things, you know, we rent equipment sometimes we buy it. Taxes on property are good, payment of the MTA. I mean, all of this stuff is pretty, I took the contingent fund out, as you know. We were on constables. So the constables, the one thing I'd like to talk about and then come back and visit the constables on page 8 is, you know, the constables are great guys and they protect the assets of the town. They go around, they drive around, they lock the gates, they watch things. But they never write tickets. And I was wondering.
Or reports.
Well, they will, if they will, don't they? I guess I really haven't pushed
I
that
haven't seen one.
in a while. You know, I will get on that because I was wondering.
What's going on?
I was wondering about that today because things have been very quiet since March. They drive around, they lock gates. There's not too much going on. Our new tenants that Mrs. Tillman mentioned earlier, they've been model tenants. Every now and then again, you can hear them laughing from the screened-in porch in the back. That's it. I mean, they've been very good. So, you know, it's been really dead.
Yeah.
But they're here and court started back up, but they never write tickets. And I don't know how we might better utilize them. I think if the 100% of the park is ours and they're patrolling the whole thing and their people are trespassing, that's a problem that people complain about, but we don't really have much control on certain, you know, those southern parcels.
Right.
Jimmy Miller did a great job a month ago with these ATV guys that came too
They
close
should have
to.
sent us something. I mean, you hear it through.
Yeah, you heard,
word of mouth,
yeah,
so-
you're right. You're right. I heard about that from residents and then George Treadwell told me, but constables, that's a good thing. So anyway, the ATVs were dangerously close to some residents who complained and Jimmy Miller got the sheriff's office over and, you know, we don't allow ATVs in the car, but I think, you know, these are things that I think if we could talk it later about how we might maybe better utilize them.
Yeah.
Now we've got a littering problem, but as George Treadwell and I talked about it, if they don't personally see somebody litter,
Yeah, it's hard to catch them.
yeah, you're not, we have those signs that say $500 littering tickets. Have you ever seen one written?
No. Yeah, all the town orders,
No,
but nobody writes tickets.
Yeah.
And one year they increased it from 100 to 500 and I questioned that because we've never collected.
Yeah.
Let's make it 1,000. Let's get.
I would love to catch them.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So anyway, something to think about. They are going to be helping us like on the Halloween night, with COVID from a perspective, making sure people exit different ways because the county, doesn't want people leaving in clusters. So they are very valuable to us, but anyway, I think we could do more. The rest of this stuff is pretty straightforward. George's, the amended budget went from 93.6 to 96.365, and that was probably just the 3% increase. He also wants a portable printer for $700. So I put that in so he can carry it with him when he's at somebody's
Right,
house and
yeah.
just get it done for them right there.
Sure.
The Registrar of Vital Statistics, that is our town clerk. And that's on the salary,
It's
the
always a
scheduled
separate line,
salaries. Yep. This is the A fund for highway that we didn't really talk about. I did not put, he's an elected official, so there was no raise for Ed. He told me if I tried to give him a raise, he wouldn't accept it anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Highway garage has been the same, for the last couple of years, so that stays the same. And we do have the ability to move things around. This guy, he's a good manager, so he's been very helpful in trying to cut this and move it over here.
Sure. Yeah, look at how nice the place looks.
Yeah, that's right.
That says a lot right there.
Yeah, it really does look good. So page 11 has been 0. I don't even understand that. I get people that write us letters asking for money, but I don't think towns are allowed to donate to charities. That's taxpayer money.
Right, that's not our.
Yeah,
purpose.
so I don't really understand that. I mean, we can give personally, but I don't know. Okay, so page 12 is parks. It went up a little bit. We have a team of 4 over there. One of them was part-time. Well, all 4 of them are full-time. We have one, the weekend person who's not always full. In other words, he's not always working a full week. It ebbs and flows based on work. But we have 4 people on the payroll as full-time people. So that there's that, the park manager has the flexibility to use them when he needs them and to not use them. And, they obviously get a lot done and especially with the COVID and disinfecting, pardon?
He's way down in the budget.
Well, personal services, 0.1 was 183, and this year it's 189. So that one went up a little bit.
For the year itself.
Yes, for the year itself. Because the equipment and capital outlay, one of the things we have had in the last few years, for example, I didn't put anything in we had a roof appropriation of $50,000 that we wanted. And that too is on this short schedule.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to pose an interesting,
2024.
yeah, so the new roof for number 8 Timeware Park Road we had that long discussion about it over a couple of meetings. And because it was a big project and the wages would obviously be a lot higher, the project was estimated a brand new roof would be $350. I think a roofer came over and said $250, and then we figured with the excess, the labor costs, Tom Harvey said you should factor $350. So we were hoping to put $50,000 a year away. We had a roofer come over here and patch it for us. Say, I'm going to give you 3 to 5 years while you're saving, and that's every time it gets a hole, I'll come over and fix it, and that's it. So there's a $350,000 pending bill.
What line is that for looking at?
That's number 8, number 9, 6, 7, it should be number 8. I think it looks like something else got taken out. It says number
The
9.
last one.
The last one.
Page 12 we're talking?
No, I'm on
No,
this.
on the list, the capital project
short list.
Okay.
Look at that one.
2024.
So the park's also got a new truck in here. They're estimating it'll be out in 2022.
He was hoping, but he said it might not absolutely have to happen. So that's another savings that we're not making. I think we need to set up a capital reserve fund for parks for equipment and then make it it needs to be broader than just equipment, because from time to time they want to do various things that, maintenance and equipment. That's why the beauty of that cell tower, in addition to all the emergency services it would
Yeah,
provide,
it
that money was going to go. It would be a great,
Yeah,
Yeah. So, but I will say, mention one thing to think about. Mr. Frazier, you might see that 350 here. Do you remember that conversation with Tom Harvey on the roof being at 350?
Yeah.
So the people for the library that want to raise money to renovate a building want to use the senior center. Their architect, they've had 2 architects come and they picked their own. They picked the second architect. And they are very excited about using the second floor above the senior center, which is right under a roof. So one of the things they were saying, the space is beautiful. It's one straight line. It's 22-foot ceilings. There's a silo at the end that the architect thought was fantastic. They could put, he said the children's section would go there because that tiled silo you can see. Go up to that second floor. It's an unfinished space. So it's totally unfinished. But one of the beauties of that, if they are able to get this approved and get their money in and get the thing approved, then it means that we wouldn't be spending $350,000 on a roof. Because they're asking, they will eventually come to us and say, we want to put a library there. So that's interesting. So, so this year in recreation on page 12, on recreation, we have kind of, we didn't do much moving around. I mean, we fine-tuned the pool, for example, which is on the next page. This line that has zeros for TGTT should be, we just don't want to eliminate it because there's some early numbers. We'd like to show 5 years of patterns. But ASP and TGTT have been combined at the top of page 13. Is that 12 or 13? That's 13.
13.
I mean, I think these numbers are good numbers. The concession stand is something else I wanted to talk to you about. So we usually run that concession stand with $11,000, and then you know, we bring in revenue to cover that. And remember, 2 years ago was the first year she'd ever made a profit. She had $2,500 in the bank, and that was a big plus.
It was.
So
Big change of pace.
it was a big change, but I mean, in the year, in this new COVID environment, our thoughts are, those kids aren't going to be coming up to the window and ordering hamburgers anymore. I mean, they're not. So we have a couple of things, and one of the things I want to talk to you about that you might actually have done elsewhere is one, Lori Smalley and I are going to meet. We're going to discuss. She's probably going to put menu items for camp, like you have to elect. Are you going to have lunch every day this week that you're here? In which case she's going to plan it early, and it'll be prepackaged with gloves and all that. And it'll be on tables, and kids will grab their own. There won't be this back and forth with 3 people touching food. So it'll be done the appropriate way, and that cuts the budget. But the other thing we're thinking of, vending machines.
That's what I was thinking. Get the personnel people out of there and just.
Well, we had this big discussion that when we had our departmental meetings. You know, the other thing is remember, we closed the concession stand on weekends because it was losing money.
Yeah.
And the weekends are when the people are sitting around the pool, and they don't order anything. So you pay somebody all day long. They order snacks. All they want are snacks.
Yeah.
So we closed it down and we gave the lifeguard stuff, but the lifeguards didn't really like being responsible for snacks. And honestly, they got to watch the pool. So the idea was, why don't we look at, I think new, they can be up to $10,000. They seem expensive, but you can rent them. And then you can fill them with your own stuff like we would the concession stand, and make them available for people on the weekend at the pool. And for kids, after they have their lunch prepared, these kids can go and all this, they have the same snacks. Lori can tell you, we review this menu every year. Same stuff they order all the time. That could just go in the machine.
Trouble is, they are very much a victim of vandalism and theft. So you gotta make sure that you're able to protect them properly when the park's
Right.
closed.
And Jake and I discussed that, and we were talking about, you know, cameras and this and that, lights on them and all that when the councilors come by.
Can you get them under a roof?
Yeah, some way to lock access.
He said they could build one. He said they would easily build a shed roof or something, and then have a door that could lock. We could do that. He said that he's actually done some, that's why I thought maybe Steve would know something about him. He was saying that there are some that are vandal proof, because I don't care what you try to do.
Really?
He said there's no way, and that you can get into a couple of them he's worked with in the past. So I when we're talking about it, we just thought it would save we could cover them up so they wouldn't be tacky. We don't want tacky neon things. But it would help on the weekends. It would enable the kids to get, and we would be COVID pure, so to speak. You know, we would put the stuff in the machine with gloves on, and then the kids get it, and that's it. There. So anyway, I think we were going to do some homework, but if you know anybody that rents them, I have a couple people looking
What should
now.
do with the ones we had here that somebody donated, they disappeared.
They what? You
We
had some
vending
here?
machines in this building that were donated to us and they disappeared. I don't know what happened.
Oh my gosh, when was that?
About 3 years ago, 4 years ago,
Wow, yeah, I don't remember ever seeing any. That's amazing.
right, Andrea?
I do remember some years ago, but I don't remember where they were. What
They were between the ladies' room and the men's room.
Oh, they took them out and put water fountains in.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it. I mean, literally, it could have been something that simple. That's
The water
odd.
fountains were there since the building was built.
Oh,
There was at least one machine there that
It was for soda?
soda disappeared.
Yeah, because then it got moved on the opposite side of the concession, you know, on the opposite side of the bathroom.
oh, it's amazing.
I do remember a soda machine.
Yeah. We
Most
had one
of
at
the-
the recycling center too.
Most of the companies that I know of, they provide the service. They do the whole operation and they post a commission on the sales.
So we should look at that and then look at maybe another way, because I think there's more than one model, but Steve's probably right for the area. Jake has had some experience at another location. And then of course you go out and buy your own and go to Sam's and buy cheap snacks and, you know. So, I mean, there's more than one way. You know what, we'll do a comparison. If you know of any and you could send in numbers or give us a connection, if you think of one of those companies. Also, we're gonna look at the one that Jake would know, and then Wendy, had asked Wendy to make some phone calls about some, so she's going off of who advertises, you know. So we could look at the various models and put that in. I think in this case, it would help us if we could hide it away behind something. So we'll do that before November 20th. We'll have
Find
an,
out if we're gonna rent it, who's responsible if it gets vandalized.
yeah.
Because if they're responsible, then of course you're.
Trouble is, we only have about a 3-month time frame where they're really gonna get a lot of use.
Yeah.
And-
Well, I don't know, that event calendar is rounding out. I mean, we were thinking we could see people, if we do, there are a lot of people that want us to do more in the park. You know, like the food for thought was people liked that, music in the park, if you do more movies in the park, whatever it is you're doing.
There's still only about 4 months.
6, don't you think 6?
You like a food truck?
I don't include that, we just put like vending machines in it, and then you just go park it in the garage at night. Because then you can move it up to town hall for an
Yeah,
event.
exactly. Great
Some other
idea.
side of the park, you know, what I mean? Oh, there's a soccer game, let's go.
And nothing happening here, you bring your recycling center.
Yeah, it is, you're right. We'll just put it on one of those little trailers on wheels.
It sounds crazy, but it's really.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
It's like, no, you know what? It's like those little icy guys that go around with their carts.
Play the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
What's that? I know, that's what I was just thinking. 240,000 plus.
It's another 50 miles.
Right. Let's get it off the yard and down the hill a few times.
I'm just making notes, okay. Okay, so anyway, that's another, with regard to recreation. I think the numbers here are really tight. I think I'd be more interested in talking to you about the revenue from those programs with something more that,
Yeah.
you know. You see the libraries on the next page, the historian, we left the same.
Mhm.
But the historian, along with some of the other part-time people, are now all stipend people.
Right,
And so we're, you know, they're not part of our workers' comp calculation, and they're not part of our,
which is good.
yeah, so they're happy to get they get the same amount, but celebrations was 1,800, we took that down to 1,500. That's the only bucket that we have if we want to do we do that holiday lunch for all the employees that the town, to thank them for the job and give out awards, and like, you know, like when Dave McMorris left and Karina, we had a thank you, you know, we did it all through that. And then we buy flags for Burbank for the memorial. These are the flags for Memorial Day. That comes out.
Yeah, right.
So that's what that budget is. Zoning board, planning board is the same. I think we left it the same. Went up. I wonder why it went up. Oh, Joan, the cost of the clerk went up. Okay, 3%. Recycling center. So we had 145 in the budget this year. We took the dollars down some. We have 2 people now and they're pleased with getting more hours. So those people are pleased. This includes the 3% raise. It means that, you know, if this is accurate, it's going to cost us 143,000. It's going to cost us 143,000 to run it. And I think when I was looking at the numbers, hang on. I can't do this without my computer anymore. We've got 148,000 guesstimate, you know, estimating the revenue. So if that is right, then we got a little bit of a buffer. If they raise their prices more than that, that it's gonna, you know, go. But we'll be flat, but it's tight there. Okay. Media. I'm not sure we had that person in the town clerk's budget, I think, for somebody to help. But since we've had COVID, I mean, since with COVID and we're using Zoom and all that, I feel, you know, that can't. Yeah. No. We can always adjust it if we need to, but I think, you know, right now that's an accurate.
Yeah, we put it in, yeah.
I'm showing both Kevin's dropped out of the meeting.
Yeah, my computer is set.
Okay.
And my kid forgot to charge that book.
Is that a Mac? Do you want to use mine?
Now, those HP.
Oh,
Here, I'll let you use this for until the battery in mine dies.
And my office for HP, hang on.
hold 1 second. We're having a technical issue. We're going to be right back. You can just mute for a second while we get this straightened out. Sorry. Oh, we can continue? You good? Okay. Kevin, you good?
Yeah, I'm rejoining. My throat's off for some reason.
I don't have you waiting. There you go. Okay, you're admitted. Excuse me. Okay, excuse me. On page 18, we have a lot of our fixed expenses, state retirement, Medicare, workers' comp, unemployment insurance. Now, unemployment insurance has always been at 2,000. we always put a little bit of money in there. We have 1,000 in unemployment insurance for the highway department. Sorry, let me do this again. We always, we have kept it level. And this year's an unusual year, so we got, you know, $18,000, $19,000, $20,000 coming in unemployment costs. But I don't recommend that we change the budget because it's one of those things that, again, that fund balance, your rainy day fund should take care of, because we are not required by law as a municipality to put money aside for unemployment insurance. So I think it's an expense that we don't normally incur. So we should probably leave it as is. So let me look here. Health insurance. You may want to look at this one. Health insurance is in the Excel pages in the back. Go to 9060.
Okay.
I have to get there to see. I just 9060 is page 98. So, oh, I thought I did. There you go. Okay, thank you. Okay. Good? There you are. So what you see here is, this is, in other words, the total town healthcare costs, excluding Medicare, is $211,914. You see in this box, the commentary box down here. Okay, right here.
Yeah.
So the total town is 211, and in the A fund or the general fund is 67% of that. The rest of it's in the highway fund carried for those employees. So that's, you know, the price did go up between the premiums and then the deductibles and then the HRA fees, which is only $1,200. But that's where the 211 comes in. And then if we put, you know, 67% of that is allocated to this budget line. It ends up being 163,790, I think.
Yeah.
Down at the bottom. So I don't know, this is a little bit off, but it really is a factor of people coming on. I think we have three people coming on that weren't on before. So
I know highway, where are the other two? You don't want to say.
No, I'm thinking. I can't say names. You're not allowed to say names.
Oh, I realize that.
But I could say department.
Well,
I think finance and parks. There may be two in parks, actually,
Oh,
because they're all full-time now.
I see.
So. But that, just so you know that number, that's where that comes from. So that 200 grand is a big number, big nut for us. If we go back to the front, back to page 19, we have a serial bond, which you guys all get a copy of, the long-term debt, which is on page 26. So this bond was, I don't know what happened with this bond. It was a bond that was used to close the landfill.
Yeah,
And
way
then
back.
they added that $193,000 truck 3 years ago, in
The
2017.
highway department.
They just added a truck to it when they went from a ban to a bond. And but anyway, the good news is, so by the end of next year, we'll be down to $565,000. So that's really great. We don't want debt as a town, or you want a small amount of debt, or you
Right.
want to take on debt for something important in these low interest
Something
rate
that's
environments.
benefiting you, not something you've already used.
Yeah,
up.
yeah. So anyway, so we don't have, you know, if we're in a position where if we wanted to renovate something, or if we wanted to do something big, and we've got these 3 projects now looking at it, you know, with the low interest rate environment, we're in good shape. But that's what that number is on page 19. So on page 20, these are estimated revenues, which I just like talking about that more. I guess it's more interesting.
Definitely more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are guesstimates, and then we could go to the other pages, which have been filled out in a way that, let me see here. So you guys are used to in the past looking at page 41 and 42. It carried on to 2 pages. You're kind of used to that, and this is just, I like this format for the public because it summarizes everything for them.
Yes, a little
And-
cleaner.
Yeah, and then you can see, this is what we're gonna raise in property taxes. Well, if we're raising $1,072,000, and I know that, typically we, and you can see this on the very front page, that we raise $1,072,000, and then we guesstimate revenues of $1,073,000. So when discussions come up, this is an important point, and I'm not picking on the library discussion, but it's a really important one. If our taxes are $1,072,000, the way that I would say that, I wouldn't say that we have $2 million to spend, $2.1 million to spend on a library. When people were talking about, whether or not it was a high number or not, and COVID was a perfect example. We can guarantee we're going to get $1,072,000 because that comes from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
But we don't know how much of that revenue we're actually, we're hoping to get that revenue. So to take a very big payment and divide it by 2 million is a completely different thing. And if I take, let me see, 79,000 by $1,072,000. That's like 7%. It's a very high allocation for a general fund for a town board to be voting on. Typically you get in excess of 5%, you like to get it out of the budget, let other people make that decision. It's a big number. That's why if we could get this plan of ours to work, or what the residents want to work, it will solve problems and make everybody happy. So. Yeah, it's 7.36, 7.4% of our money that we have available for those kind of appropriations, because the rest of it is not a given. So anyway, page 40 for the town board, 40 and 41 and 42, sorry, is the revenues as you're used to seeing them. And then on this other page of that we were just looking at, shows it in the same format as those expenditures, which some people will prefer looking at. It just depends on which you like. Why don't we go to the general fund revenues on page 21, or starting on page 20. These are some of these accounts. These are what New York State actually calls all these accounts in this left column on page 20. Page 20.
Mm-hmm.
Those are New York State. So this, in trying to get everybody used
They
to.
don't like using the word sales tax?
Yeah, no, they don't. It's interesting. They have a lot of strange, titles, and some of them I had to change, like other general deposit income, other culture and recreation income. And in our case, that's where we're putting special events. So we had to kind of put the parenthetical notation so you could follow along. So, all I can say, we can go through each one. Our mortgage tax is, these are the highlights. The mortgage tax on page 21, I'm holding that flat to, well, it was same as 2019 and 20. It looks like it may be better this year because there's been the, fast turnover of a lot of homes.
A lot of homes, yeah.
But rather than, because we don't know, and because sales tax is iffy, I just felt like, why don't we just leave it the same number, and if we do better, we're fine. I think to try to guess, although I can see we're gonna hit that number this year, so that's good.
Well, we only got 40,000 year to date.
As of July.
Even so.
Well, remember some of this, the money for December doesn't come in until next year. It's accrued, and then we put it back into the numbers
Okay.
later. But yeah, we'll hit that number.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just got worried when I saw that.
Yeah, no, the year-to-date stuff, because we start early putting these numbers together, so the year-to-date is always lagging. So the general fund, I mean, all of these revenues you're used to, I mean, I don't. There, look at that, intergovernmental charges. We have snow removal services, other governments. That's the money that the fire department pays us for snow removal. So that's another, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So the way they, sometimes it's hard, but you get used to them. If,
Has Ed talked at all to the county about possibly getting money from them on snow removal?
well, we're gonna have a conversation. I talked to him once and he goes, I don't think it's worth it. He
Okay.
he didn't think it was worth it,
All
which is
right.
what Richie always said.
That's what happened to them.
They don't pay enough.
They weren't offering what the job was worth.
Okay,
It was gonna cost us money.
Yeah.
glad he knows that.
Yeah, he knew, he had, either he had checked or somebody asked him about it. When he first came into office, they called me to get his name and number and told me they wanted to talk to him about that. And I said, okay, here's his number, good luck. And he went through the numbers with him. He agrees with Steve.
Okay, good.
But if that ever changes, if they really want to,
Yeah, I was just curious.
yeah. So we had budgeted $25,000 in interest this year, and obviously that's not happening. So I've got $7,500 plugged in for next year. So that was a shame. That was a nice gift. We still have our special events is $25,561, and that's primarily from our Oktoberfest, the money that we use to fund
Yeah.
all the other things.
Right.
You know, this year we've got some new events put in there. I've got to look at it one more time. We spent with the Parks and Rec people and the event, Wendy and the group and our town clerk, we were all in on these meetings to figure out our calendar for next year. And because we've had a call from people to please put on some more things like maybe movies in the park again and music. So we went through a whole calendar. We have a tentative calendar that I'll give you, I'll send to you. But before I send it to you, I wanted to plug in, try to figure out the numbers. Like how much would this cost to put on? A lot of them we're trying to keep them free for the residents. But some we're gonna have to make money on. And I know we're checking on, for the adult oriented events, liquor licenses for each one of them. So you can get a couple of glasses of wine while you're listening to music or something. And that will help offset costs. So we're putting those numbers together, but it's definitely a more robust calendar for next year. And Allison Croak, our new, I mean, she's got some wonderful ideas and some great experience. So some of that is coming, you know, we're going to try to round out with some new
Yeah,
stuff.
very good.
Yeah. So anyway, that might drive our revenue in that category up. We were conservative in the camp estimates because we know, I mean, I think we guessed 25% of the people might not return. So we dropped that number by 25%. It's better to be conservative in those estimates than overdo it. And we've been pretty conservative in our revenue estimates too, so that we don't go out on a limb and then come up short-sighted. So I talked to our building department about going down to maybe 95, which is where the budget was this year. But he feels he's so far on the track and there's been so much business, you know, that he's been working on that he said, no, go ahead and move it up. You know, the thing with George is we move his goal up, his revenue goal every year and he
Yeah.
meets it.
I know.
Well,
Well, he usually knows what he's talking about, so.
yeah, I feel comfortable with it
Yeah.
moving up, so I moved it up and, you know, we have that, the ability to pay online for him is a big deal.
Good.
All of his people, oh, here it is. All, you know, so many of the contractors would rather pay online and not have to come in.
Oh, yeah. Now with that printer, you can do it in the field.
And then he can do it for homeowners when he
Yeah.
goes to see them.
Yep.
So, I mean, that will work. So I think, I don't know, I've looked at all these departments. I think there's a little tweaking that we need to do. And I think if you guys would think about some of the ideas that we have, and when we come back to talk about more of those, that would help. And digesting these numbers a little bit more will. But boy, do we have a lot of fixed costs, you know.
Oh, for sure. Like
But-
Kevin was saying earlier, all these state mandates over the years have really made it quite an expensive list of things you
Steve,
gotta
yeah,
do.
no, yeah, you're right. It's just amazing. I mean, we have to mark our calendar with all these reports and, of course, with the state. Now, here's the other thing that happened with the state. back in Steve's experience years ago, and even beyond that, because Jill Jarina gave me the history, you know, the courts used, even in Unionville, they made a good sum of money because, you know, they're here to serve the local environment. They're here to serve local people. And that's what it's for. And it's mandated, we have to have a court. And they used to keep 90% of whatever they charged in fees and 10% went to the state. And do you know today it's almost reversed?
Of course.
The state takes 80, we keep 20. So every year so what's happened is every year, so we have a court now that is in the red every year, but we're required to have the service. And it's not their fault. They're not gonna, they handle everybody, you know, fairly. So it's, you know, they're not in the business of producing revenue and don't want to hear about it, which is the right attitude. But when you talk about the history of those fees and what the state has done.
It's a shame, really.
I
A lot of
know,
people work hard to generate that income, and it's all goes to the state.
yeah, it's just amazing. Unless you're Mylan and you have the Taconic going
Oh,
through.
yeah. Even then, though, you're working hard for it.
I've donated to that.
Yeah, I have too. So chasing you on the Taconic. Yeah, we're both both on the Taconic. He's a mile ahead of me. He must be going 85. They let him pass and they pulled me over. While I'm on the phone with you, this is last January when we were going up for that Association of Towns training. And he's like, oh, they pulled you over? They didn't, he was gone. That was so funny. They just waved. Oh, I know that guy. So the only other, okay, so if we go back in here, I mean, I would say that the summer camps are in good shape. We reviewed these numbers, the pool. I think the other blessing we have with Allison is that Allison is an aquatics director. She's going to be our aquatics director for the pool next year. She's got years of experience with that. She's also certified, so she can train our employees and we won't be spending $1,500 bringing an outside trainer in. So so we've gotten some benefits there. So, you know, I think what you know, we've decided to do is try to round out the calendar and come up with more things that people would like and come up with some ways, including liquor licenses, to pay for them and cover the costs. And it should be a nice year for, hopefully, that we can get it all done. And it should be a really nice year.
We need a nice year.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about it. I think that there's some little tweaks that we need to go through, and any suggestions, especially if we can plug them into revenue, would be awesome. So I'm going to talk to the constables about a regular report again. I have not pushed that. That's on me. I will talk to them about that. I think if we could look at the 3 different financial models for vending machines and then discuss that, and the insurance I've got written down, we can do that. I'm going to correct the number in here for the Dutchess County chargebacks to make sure that matches the bill we got or is a little higher. And we're all gonna, I don't know if we have many cost savings ideas left. We're gonna wait to see the dam report for the infrastructure, but if this is good, then that's great. We can hold tight with this selection that we've made and then vote on it when we know the rest of the bill. But revenue ideas, cost saving ideas, and any new project ideas would be more than welcome. Steve, did you want to talk about number 11?
Yeah.
It'd be a great.
I have a friend in the real estate business who's very successful with Century 21. And had talked to her about the 11. She tells me that 4-bedroom homes in the Arlington School District are at a premium. They're very rare to come across. They have a waiting list of people ready to move into these things. She said that we could get between 2,500 and 3,200. I'm thinking with the way the market is, we could probably get real close to that 3,200 a month on it. They would advertise it, but again, they already have a list of people looking for the place, so that it really would not be on the market for very long. And they normally charge 1 month rent fee to do the listing and the service. And what they do is a full background check on the tenant They'll do a background check, they'll do a financial check, credit history, and reference check. So that we're getting qualified tenants as well. And she said that because of how quickly they're turning them over, she would do it at 50% off, half the cost. I think we ought to look at the high number on that. And if it doesn't move, then we could consider lowering the rental fee on it. And that house can start making money for us.
Well, let's see what else. I think it's a great idea, and I'm surprised. I wish she'd donate it to you for the. I know when we asked another broker to do number 2 for us, she donated it, her time, and she came and did a walkthrough and gave a list of what needed to be cleaned up and everything. So that's a shame, but I can't blame them for wanting to get paid. But we also have our friend from the house. There was another interested party. And I wanted to talk to you about that after the meeting, Kevin, just because you told him the proper procedure and he followed it. But that came with some strings. It sounds like I'm going to find out next week, but that came with some strings. So there's another interest. And then the third interest was, as Kevin was, Councilman McGivney was explaining after the last meeting, that there was a little misunderstanding about what we meant by short-term rentals, and which was very helpful. The short-term that I was referring to, which I didn't realize we should have defined it, was extended stays. And I think that Councilman Frazier thought I meant every weekend, which would have been horrific. So we were looking for that New York City group that wanted to come up for, several months. They were weekend people. I use the phrase weekend. That weekend people that would want to lock in a longer lease, but only would show up on the weekends. And we've had a couple people ask if we would let their friends take the house if it were furnished. And that was at a $5,000 number. So I don't know, how strong that number is, but I think what we could do is take a short amount of time and research all 3. I don't want to have, she can't do any work yet until we hire her, but we could research idea number 2 and then follow up on those other leads for the furnished place. There were 3 people that contacted us and it wasn't furnished. So they ran off, they grabbed other places. But they're still in a bad boat in New York City. And so those offers may still be there. We could get, we could get something for that. So it's worth chasing them down. So why don't we take another couple of weeks to chase those down and then come back about that?
Let's stay on top of this. That the place has been vacant for over 2 years, and every meeting that we pass now is $1,500 loss to us.
Does anybody else have anything else that you want to talk about?
I know.
Have you gotten enough budget for one night?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what we can do, I think, is I've got some follow-ups, and if you guys give some thought to some other ideas. I appreciate the help on that house, because the last time we left it lingering was our intention was to renovate it, because we do have a market request about in the old days, pre-COVID, a market request for a nicer event space. So I do really appreciate the help with that, Steve. But if we've gotten everything covered and we've got more to think about for the next go round, we will take care of and thank the Town of Beekman Board for having a joint meeting with us, and that will be on Monday, the 23rd. Before then, we have an October 29th meeting, and that will be to finalize this, have a discussion about it, and then vote to call it the preliminary budget. We can still change it and tweak it before it gets voted on as the adopted budget November 20th. So more to think about, more to talk about. Okay. So at this point, we are finished with the budget. We approved the motion to approve the salt shed. At this point, we're going to go to the resolution. It's
2035.
2030. Yep, that's finalizing our 3-month process. Do you mind reading that, Councilman Durlin?
Sure will. Resolution 2035, authorizing change in building department.
Hold it. Unmute, please.
2035, authorizing a change in. Yeah, I must be. You got me now? Okay. All right, resolution 2035, authorizing a change in building department section of town code regarding the fee schedule and permit extensions. Be it enacted that the town board of the town of Unionville, pursuant to a public hearing held on September 17th, 2020 at 7:30 PM at the Town Hall, Town of Unionville, 249 Duncan Road, LaGrangeville, New York, 12540, legal notice of which hearing was posted by the town clerk on September 1st, 2020, and published in the Poughkeepsie Journal on September 3rd, 2020, does hereby adopt local law amendments to Town Code Chapter 105 entitled Building Permits, and to Chapter 128 entitled Fees, Land Use, specifically 129-4, Building Permits and Related Matters, with the language to be added underscored and the language to be deleted, stricken through being attached hereto and incorporated herein. And the town board does herewith waive the verbatim reading thereof and does direct that the adoption of said amendments be spread across the record as if they in fact had been read verbatim. And be it further enacted that said local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State.
Thank you for offering that motion. Is there a second for that resolution?
I'll second.
Will second, resolution 2035. Is there any discussion needed? So third month talking about this. No discussion. Given there's no discussion, can we have a roll call vote?
Councilman Frazier,
Aye.
Councilman Derland. Councilman McGivney. Councilman Welsh. Supervisor Moss.
Aye. Okay, resolution. That
One person that's a court.
well, that trick didn't work, unfortunately, right? Where you could just unmute automatically. It's unfortunate. Yeah. It just does. Sorry, I apologize. We have paid time off. We need to tweak it a little bit. We did vote on this in January of 2019, and we excluded the recycling center people and two women that have been here for a long time and have always worked part-time. So that group of people are excluded from this, but typically for everybody else, part-time employees receive 1 week with no tiers for service, years of service, which needs to be spelled out. And the second highlighted area is, this came because of an incident. There will be no payment for unused vacation. In our policy is that if you didn't go on your 2-week vacation, let's say, and then you left, you could get paid for that. But there are two things. One, if an employee is terminated for cause, meaning they drank at work or they did something illegal at work, and or if a 2-week notice is not given.
We've had that one.
Yeah, you have it where somebody doesn't want to give their 2-week notice, so they just quit. They leave somebody hanging, and then they get 2 more weeks of vacation. So they got 4 weeks paid for, or 4 weeks where we're out, and it's not right. So the idea is to put this in the handbook. As I mentioned this at the work session, so I'm probably being redundant, but does anybody have any questions about it?
I don't know, did the labor laws touch on this at all? I'm concerned about that last one there. If somebody's earned earned accrued time, I don't know that we can withhold it from them.
Well, I think if you have what we found out, and I can check again because this was 4 months ago now, and I haven't even looked at this since, but what we found out when we asked in New York State, we didn't ask an attorney, so you never know who's answering the phone up there. But when we called New York State, it's our policy to give the vacation time, and it's our policy how we handle it. It's our policy to handle the tiers. All of that is up to us. So if you have an employee that breaks a rule or doesn't follow our policies, that, yeah, we can do that. Because all of this is things that we've set up. You know, we don't have to give any of this. It's just that once you do, you have to be fair.
Yeah, of course.
So we were told on the phone by somebody who answered the phone at the Department of Labor, which isn't always my favorite resource, that yes, you could. If it was in your handbook and it was one of your rules and somebody broke that rule and they were aware of the rule, that you could. So if somebody really tried, now we don't have that happen, but it has come to our attention that it's happened in the past. And it did something similar. Nothing is negative, but it happened when people don't give 2 weeks notice, it can really hurt an area, as you guys probably know from other jobs, right? Most people would give a 2 week notice because they know for sure they're going to get their vacation even when they leave. So I think there is incentive there to play by the rules.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, more in the highway department than anywhere because they're a little like independent contractors, kind of. Okay.
Is this to go into effect next year?
It would go in effect as of today or whenever it's approved. This whole schedule
We would
was,
have to notify the employees in writing.
oh yeah, we'd have to put it, that section of the handbook would have to be
Make sure they have
updated, then
the
we have to
documents.
send that, yeah, we could make it as of January.
Well, yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I'd like one more meeting at least. I have somebody that I can check with on that
Okay,
and
good.
find out. I'd be more comfortable if I knew a positive answer to that.
It doesn't matter to me at all. Actually, I think starting it on January 1st is better because it kind of aligns itself with the time,
Yeah,
the vacation tiers and everything else.
right.
So I think that's fine.
Okay, I'll have an answer then.
That would be great. But don't call the Department of Labor. I mean, you might, but I think it's one of those places where sometimes if you call more than once, you talk to two different people. But that was definitely the answer that we got. It's our policy. Start at.
They started a new HR department at Wappinger, and I'm fast becoming very familiar with a lot of the rules I had no idea existed. That's it's got what has my guard up.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. Unless it drives you crazy, that's good. Oh, boy. Okay, that's easy. Thank you very much. The last motion, now, this would be a motion to temporarily amend the sign law. Now, our sign law doesn't designate political signs over any other sign. Our sign law
Right.
is actually consistent with
For any event.
law, which is
Or-
any temporary event. So the sign law is for temporary events, and currently you're allowed for any temporary event to post your signs 1 week before, or 10 days,
10
sorry,
days.
10 days before. And I think as was mentioned earlier, the request was to discuss this, to permit them to sign 1 week before early voting starts, which would be October 17th instead of October 24th. Now, I did mention this to the town attorney, and his advice was that our town code says it should be 10 days before. We made an exception last year based on the fact that early voting was taking place here and people had to drive through town to get here to do the early voting. We're not doing early voting here. We're doing the early voting is now in the Millbrook Firehouse this year. So his advice was to be consistent with our town code unless they have early voting here and we want to accommodate people that are driving to the polls, which is what we did last year. So that was his advice. Now, Mrs. Kilcrease made a very good argument that people are, COVID, they're not going out there, but they do have to go out to vote. But the other, I think she's absolutely right. People need more ways to vote. Apparently, that's what the word is. But I find it interesting because most people will say that the signs don't really help anything. Do you? I don't know. I don't know.
I agree that they don't help. They're ugly and they're annoying and litter.
So, yeah, I had a politician tell me that he didn't think signs were, a politician told me he didn't think signs were, they're not really helpful. So I don't, and I understand her case, but the other side of this is what our attorney said. We certainly want to listen to him. And then, of course, the town code, a lot of the town people like coming back to Unionville where we don't have signs all over the place. So I don't know how the town residents would feel about it because they love the rural nature. That's our.
Yeah.
So-
I'm just going to interject here because this law has bothered me since I became aware of it. In this day and age with people who have, my calendar is filled probably through December. I have engagements that are on there, and for an event to be scheduled and just be able to be advertised 10 days in advance doesn't allow a lot of people to consider that for their calendars. I'm just thinking about other events and, not just the politics end of it. But I don't think that's a lot of time in this day and age to be able to advertise an upcoming event.
But some people would say that they're moot. It's a moot point because everybody uses social media.
Yeah, I was gonna say, our highways and roads should not be considered an advertising opportunity for events.
Yeah,
Rather than use traditional media or social media or electronic stuff,
yeah.
where most people are seeing it on a regular basis.
Well, personally, that's how I keep track of the Greek Festival in Poughkeepsie every year. And, I see the signs on the side of the road.
But do you plan that far in advance? I talked to
I pretty
the
much
Chamber
have.
of Commerce. You do? I talked to them and they weren't even interested in putting up signs early because they do everything's on social media. And then it's that last minute person driving, that they catch right before the event because social media is key.
The same
today.
should be true about signs that are up after that. We have that sign there for October 3rd event, still out on our field there for an October 3rd.
I thought it said films and, it should say, it said films and food.
Yeah, for October 3rd. Today's the
Oh,
14th.
that's right.
That should
I was
be
looking
down.
at it. Why doesn't that say Halloween? That's so funny.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a mistake. You're right.
Well,
That was supposed to have been changed last week.
That's
Jake's
a-
on vacation.
That's another part of the law I wanted to bring up. Right now, it currently states within 24 hours of the event, you have to have the sign down.
yeah.
I've been caught, in a snowstorm trying to scramble and get these signs down to meet the requirements of the law. And election day falls on a Tuesday. If you got to work early the next morning, that doesn't give you a lot of time to go out and grab signs. Well, I just think that until the following weekend would be more reasonable.
First of all, I don't think you'd ever get a ticket or anything if there's a snowstorm.
Yeah, who do you
But
decide?
No, it's been mentioned here at town board meetings that I didn't get my signs down in time. And there had been a snowstorm.
In November, though, election day,
The day following,
maybe once.
it was brought up at a town board meeting that I hadn't put my
Wow.
signs back or take my signs down. We had a 3-inch snowstorm that night. And I just didn't feel that I needed to get out there and risk that.
And were you fined or
think you're-
ticketed?
No, I wasn't, but
Don't worry about it.
it was criticized at a town board meeting.
that was you?
Yeah,
Good for you.
I know now.
Oh,
I'm old.
all right, that was,
Let's just
okay.
settle this right now.
But you were within your right. But he was within his right because I think you make exceptions for
You ought to be a
snowstorms.
constable.
So,
I put my name, nobody's hiring.
but I mean, the only thing I worry about is the residents of the town, because every time, people mention it, they pride themselves on the place being clean the day after an election, where every other town is littered for another week. And it's horrible. And when you drive into Unionville, it's beautiful. And I think people really like that about the town.
There's still campaign signs up.
Where's that? Oh my gosh.
There was a Paso sign in Beacon until a few months ago.
Oh my gosh. See? And I think it is a sense, I know we all have to get out there and take signs up. And people should help you, frankly, if you have to work the next day. You shouldn't have to do that. But I mean, I have to tell you, there's a source of pride picking them up and going around and going, man, this place looks great. Everybody does it. All political parties do it. They take care of it. And I think that's a plus for all of us work together on that. So, I think we should just vote on, I mean, my own thought is like, I kind of defer to the attorney, and unless we're going to change the town code, I feel like his advice is what to
Yeah,
go
we have to
on.
respect our code. We developed it. We should be consistent with it. She brings up a good point, but
She
this
brings
is
up a
an
good
unusual
point.
year.
But
And-
also, nobody's precluded from private property.
Right.
You can put these signs all over housing development properties, and
Put them in your
every,
window or put them on your yard.
yeah, everybody can put them on their lawns and everything. You can put them in your front lawn, your whole field. There you go.
Yeah.
So, and you're close to the voting area.
How many
Well,
deer you got registered? I said, how many deer you got registered?
bears. Ask her about bears. So, I mean, all right, let's just, first we need a motion. Would somebody put this?
I make.
Actually, I don't, do we need a motion if we're not taking action?
Well, we were gonna vote. I mean, or do we feel like we settled it?
If nobody makes a motion to change it, it stays.
Okay, then that's fine. We had the discussion. I wasn't sure if we were all in agreement with riding it as it is. All right, I'm sorry, Mrs. Kilcrease, who's listening, but I think we're gonna, if we're appointed she's gone. If we're appointed if we become an early voting center again next year, my guess is we'd probably make the same decision.
We just either do it or we don't, because if we just made a motion to extend it now, then only 2 people that are listening besides us theoretically are gonna know. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
Like, we either gotta decide if we're gonna abandon the law or if we're gonna stick to the law.
I don't know if we can do that tonight.
Right. I
No,
know.
we
I'm
can't.
just
It's too
saying
late
that's a
anyway. Like you said, they would know about it.
exercise.
Well, it's too, but also remember, it is in our town code, and the reason we made that adjustment last year was specifically because we were a early voting site. People had to come here. So we allowed them to post signs because people from all over the county could come to Unionville and vote.
Yeah.
So it made complete sense last year.
Right.
But under
This
the
year,
normal,
Our town is our own.
yeah,
We
they're going to
maintain it.
Millbrook. So, they should be posting them early in Millbrook. And then we
Yeah.
have to follow the code, and that's what the code says. 10 days. And I
I'm
do
a fan
think,
of that code rule.
huh?
I'm a fan of that.
I think-
rule.
I am too. I think a lot of residents like it. And Steve should have help picking up those signs. That's not fair, Steve. Like, what's that committee you belong to that's not helping you out?
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
And how about are there any public comments on it, on town issues?
I've got
Everybody
one.
good?
I've got one. Can you hear me?
Is there anybody that signed up to talk about town issues?
Can-
When speakers off, or is,
Oh, we have all our speakers on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we got you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We got you now. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. And I almost hesitate asking this because I know it's 10:15. But either now or later, can someone provide an update on what's going on with the Unionville Library Services?
Glenn, you're asking about Unionville Library Services?
Yeah, either now or later. It's late. But I know there's like one of the things that town was going to do as active, and the rest, I just don't know where it is.
Thank you. So oops.
Yeah, I lost what Kevin was saying, and maybe you're not hearing me.
So no, you wanted an update on library services?
Yeah, so I know that there's plans underway to address some of the things that we lost with the Mid-Hudson Library Services.
I would
And
say all of
personally-
them, no, we're addressing all of them except the one for children's museum passes.
Right. So when I've looked on the website, I've seen the Canopy is live, but nothing else is live. So I guess I'm just asking where the rest of it is.
Okay, so I'll find out, and let you know. And the reason why, Kathy Wellman had a complete knee replacement. And so she had that operation last week, and we've been giving, she needs a little bit of time to recover. But I think she was working on that today, so I'll find out, because I believe all of that was in the works to go on. They were working on trying to tie in technically to our website. So there was a technical hiccup, but let me find out, Glenn, we'll let you know.
Yeah, if you could, I've, maybe others have the same questions, so maybe it's a Unionville mail thing, but that's up to you.
Okay, and also, I know that one thing that Kathy said, and I will call her tomorrow, again, we gave her a few days since the surgery, but that people were emailing her directly on the website, and she's procuring things from people directly, so that's something else that's happening. But let me get a response from her, and I'll let you know. Maybe they've gotten the technical part. We're turning into a real high-tech operation. We've asked them to do some things that they've never done before, which is kind of neat. And so they had to retool some things at Baker Taylor so that our people could just access it through the website. It's kind of neat, but I thought it might have been done by now, but I'll find out, okay?
I mean, I can ask Kathy too, but I just didn't know where to go.
Well, I'll find out, and I will somehow communicate it. Because if Kathy's not feeling well, she may not take your call, I'm not sure. But she'll be back at the end of this week. No, probably next week she'll be back. Do you think, Andrea? She's got to be off that knee for 6 weeks or something. So she's doing some work from home, so.
And obviously, you know something I don't. I just asking the question.
Okay, anything else? Does anybody else have anything else? None on any issues? Okay. Well, thank you, Glenn. Thanks for participating, hanging in there with us. And Mrs. Tillman. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
Second, all in favor?